what's up? Normal Merrick Show host Rob Nor. No hat. You can see my bald head today. Sorry about that. Hopefully I don't lean forward. The glare shining in everyone's eyes. I had a teacher in high school one time I got in trouble. He was a shop teacher. And he had the classic male pattern baldness with the horseshoe. And we used to have this inside joke about him being bald. So I was walking behind him in the hall one day and was acting like the light was shining like off his bald head into my eyes. And he caught me. He didn't really say anything. He just frowned. So it was my destiny in life. It was karma that I too, at the age of 40, would be getting the male pattern baldness. Karma has struck me down. Much deserved. So what can you do? Happy to be here. Get a beanie and pretend. I wore a ball cap here and there before I was balding, but not as much as I do now. It doesn't look bad when I have my hair cut down like this, but when it starts to get longer and it gets like longer on the sides and wispier at the top, that's no good. That's hat hair there. You gotta get the hat on for that. Incidentally, one of the things I like about being a smaller streamer is it's easy for me to see most of the comments that people leave on my videos. If you're a big streamer, and you get 1,000 comments on a video, you're probably not looking at 1,000 comments. But if you're only getting like 4, then you get a chance to read. Vita, thanks for the super chat, $2. Your eyes, yep. Sorry about that. Gotcha. Yeah, another new account. I didn't see that Wick panel, but I'm not surprised. I'm too lazy to shave it every day. Look at this. I'm too lazy to shave even this stubble. It needs to come off. I'm married. I don't give a shit. My wife's stuck with me. That's true. No hat. How are you supposed to know if I'm being a righty or lefty? Anyways, the bandana. One of the comments, I think it was on an X post I had today, was like, "What's up with this dude's hairline?" I'm going bald. What do you mean, what's up? It's pretty simple. It's pretty much self-explanatory. You know, what are you going to do? Incidentally, if you're on Twitch watching, I don't have the alert set up for Twitch anymore, so just let me know if someone subbed. Just put it in the chat. Hey, so-and-so subbed, and I'll give you a shout-out. So thanks so much for that. By the way, I have one person watching on Twitch right now, so I know I just started streaming, and I'm a little late. Yeah, Andrew did well on Piers Morgan. I did see most of that. Maybe we'll look at some of that tonight. I don't know. But yeah, the Twitch algorithm's really been crushing me. There it is. It's my body double. Of course. Who's really just me typing over here on another account to up my numbers. I'd love to do Piers Morgan. I'd love to talk to Mehdi Hassan. It'd be a dream of mine. I would tear him a new one. Me and Andrew versus Mehdi and Destiny. Make it happen. It'd be wonderful. So, yeah, I'll say this again later, but one of the things that I had a good friend of the show, Chickenfoot, reach out to me and say, give me some suggestions on members-only content for YouTube, since I have a lot of people that are members now. He suggested before I jump in doing members-only streams and things of that nature. Most of the time, those aren't as popular. Instead, we should start with doing some different emojis. So if you're a member and you check, you'll see that... thanks, hey. Yeah, I appreciate that. You'll see that you got some new emojis to mess with. That's what my father-in-law called them, emojis. Which is... he's also a guy that would say the Facebook. My father-in-law is one of the smartest people ever when it comes to mechanics. Used to be a diesel mechanic, was a farmer. He's a truck driver that drives oversized loads now. Any piece of vehicle, that guy's a whiz at fixing. I've seen him fix boat engines, I've seen him fix truck engine, car engines, etc. But man, can he not operate a computer or a cell phone. I'll be over at his place all the time and he'll be like, "Rob, my phone's screwing up." He's looking for parts for his truck or something on Auto Trader. He's like, "It's freezing up on me. Can you look?" And I'll check, and he's got 50 screens open, and it's just eBay, Auto Trader, Rock Auto. I'm like, Vince, you can't do that, man. You got to do one or two windows at a time. It's it's pretty funny. 1 month, all right, Joseph Bandit. Thanks for becoming a member. I really appreciate it. So there you go. You got some new emojis there. Hope you guys like those. I certainly am a fan of them. So we're going to get some new ones up too. So if people have suggestions, you can send me emojis that you might want for me to add on Discord. Put them in the Discord chat. Yeah, it's quite good. He thinks I'm an absolute idiot. And he's right. Like, I'm the least handy person in the world. And I've married his daughter. And sometimes I think he's like, be nice if there was a real man in that house that could actually, like, fix things. So I'm not great at that sort of stuff. But there are other things. Like, if he gets any, like, a new... I remember he got his Blu-ray player. The guy can't figure that out. And it's like, dude, I've watched you tear apart an engine and put it back together. It's just an HDMI cord. There's only one spot it could go. Like, work was all right this week. I can't complain. Also, I got my Christmas lights up today. They're very meager. My son, Hank, started the tradition last year. He likes those big inflatable Christmas decorations that you put in your yard. He likes Christmas dinosaurs. So we got 4 Christmas dinosaurs out there. We had 5, but I'm afraid that the one has a leak. And it's just not inflating the way it should. So I'm going to look at it tomorrow and see if I can find if there's a leak. Or it might just be that the motor... It's straight out of the package. So it might be that the motor's not strong enough on it. Yeah, thanks, Body Double. I appreciate it. I did. I ran out of hats. So that's Bald Rob today. So, yeah, it's the story with Christmas decorations. I'll get a picture up. Excuse me. I've had the hiccups all day today. And I don't know why. It's very rare for me. But, there you go. So, what to talk about today? There's stories. There's January 6th stuff. There's personal gripes I have with people we could talk about. We take callers. Whatever you all like. I'm game for anything. People want... The Discord will be open if people want to call in. I'm perfectly fine with that. Disable that. I'll put that link out to the Discord. One second. Replacing the blower is pretty easy. I shouldn't have to replace it straight out of the box, though, you'd think. I just bought the thing. Did an asteroid hit the inflatable dinosaur? Not yet, man. They could be a bit pricey. I hope no asteroids hitting them. But yeah. I don't know why, too. I'm sleepy today. I don't know if I didn't sleep well or what. Yeah, did you see that? My Body Double. Destiny wants to know where the right-wing debaters are. So we had some fun with that on X. Let's jump in. Let's talk about the January 6th stuff. Now, here's the deal. I have not read the IG report. So I don't have a lot to comment on it right now. But I do have some things to comment on at face value, particularly Thomas Massie and the posts he's made and claims that Merrick Garland's made while testifying in front of Congress that I think are worth it. But we do have a caller. Let's take the caller first. Who knows? Maybe we'll have a long stream of callers. Hopefully it's someone who wants to argue with me. That'd be nice. Let's see if we can get someone who wants to argue with me and will simultaneously not call for the execution of people based on their sexual orientation. That would be a good call. We could do it. We'll get one. We can do it. So let's bring in the call. I'll put that link one more time if other people want to call in as well. All right, let's do it. What's up, Cloak of Shadow? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I do. What's happening?
Yeah, not doing much, man. Just got done work myself. Just finished eating, so I'm feeling good. And then I saw the news and said, "Oh shit, who would have thunk it?"
Yeah, it's shocking, right? For those that don't know, IG Horowitz came out with a report. It had been done for a while now, but it's 26 assets. Confidential human sources just from the FBI were on the ground on January 6th. Several of them engaged in criminal activity, including physically entering the Capitol. None of them have been charged. At least one of them that went into the Capitol building had their expenses reimbursed through your tax dollars to help.
Oh, yeah, of course, it's great.
To help partake in an insurrection? Say it ain't so. Our tax dollars went for that. So yeah, that's if you're just tuning in, that's the news that broke a couple hours ago. I haven't had a chance to read the report. I actually wasn't working. I worked yesterday. My block ended yesterday, but I was putting Christmas lights up and then helping my wife. I don't know. I assume my son's not watching me downstairs. Sometimes my wife has me on the TV downstairs, but I'll just
no, they keep you video logged.
Yeah, my wife was helping with wrapping presents for other people. No one in our home, since Santa Claus will take care of that. So that's what I was up to. So I didn't get a chance to read the IG report. I just saw some.
Yeah, me neither. I haven't had the chance to look through it. It's mainly just been a cursory glance. But I mean, the first part of my question was, did you were you surprised? Me personally, no, and I don't think you were either.
No, I'm not. In fact, this is exactly what I expected from the IG report. I would imagine that there's way more assets than this, right? First off, there was reporting previously, I saw Julie Kelly was talking about some of the defense attorneys in the January 6 cases that talked about how there is a legal argument as to whether or not it would be evidence. I think it's like a Brady law or something like that, but don't quote me on exactly what the provision is. That when something like this occurs, the defense is entitled to this sort of information because they could use this as a possible defense for entrapment or incitement, etc. That could either mean it's a defense to the crime or it's a mitigating circumstance. And so a lot of defense attorneys for January 6 are obviously going to perk up on what the government now admits with what they know. What this particular defense attorney told her was they were told that it's going to be all but impossible to find out how many CHSs were from each agency because they didn't keep a master list. Each field office were responsible with keeping their own sort of list of who CHSs were, and for reasons of, I don't know, afraid that information would get out or something like that, they didn't compile like a master list. So the way that the IG would have to deal with this is basically to call every single field office and be like, okay, who did you have that was a CHS? And so this defense attorney wonders, did that occur? Or was it just, hey, Chris Wray, head FBI office, who do you got? And that's where it ended. Now, clearly, I need to go through the IG report myself and see what their methods were and what they claimed, but I'm not surprised that there were assets on the ground. I would be shocked if it was only this 20-something. I think that there's going to be a lot of devils in the details in this. The first would be that it will be hard to find out exactly how many there were, even through the FBI, for the aforementioned reason. Secondly, even if these numbers end up being incorrect, I assure you it'll be a whoopsie, the FBI screwed up, it wasn't intentional.
Well, once again, they screwed up their numbers
That's right.
whether it be crime statistics or, hey, how many agents they have in the field.
That's
right. Crazy. It's
and
nutty.
then that doesn't even get into the conversation of how many other agencies had people on the ground there, like confidential human sources on the ground. And then the last part of it is, there's claims, and I'll have to read this, and maybe the IG specifically says this, but there are claims that this specifically debunks the idea that there were actual FBI agents on the ground. And I don't believe that. Or rather, let me articulate, maybe that could be true of the FBI, though I would be suspicious of this claim, and I'll explain why, hopefully in a non-conspiratorial reason for anyone that's out there listening that hates MAGA and hates me and thinks that I'm just a crazy conspiracy theorist. My guess would be that there are undercover law enforcement at almost every political rally, particularly that it's going to be at a place like the Capitol.
Oh, yeah, 100%. The main thing that's going to happen is more like, hey, how many people are there? And that's the thing I'm wondering. One, how many people were there? And two, what was their role there? It's supposed to be for defense?
That's exactly right.
Like, that's the thing.
That's exactly right. And so the idea, the way this is going to be spun is like, and you already see the mainstream media spin. Well, there were no FBI agents on the ground, right? So
it's first, hey, there were no FBI agents, and then it's saying, oh, well, there might have been FBI agents. Oh no, it was good that they were there because they were there to quell the rioter. whatever shit they're going to spend this time.
And so to me, it's like, but you don't want to, if you're arguing on the side of downplaying this, you don't want to oversell your claims, which is likely what they'll do, because what's going to happen is, if you say that, and you're like, well, there's no FBI agents there, and it would only be nefarious if there's FBI agents there, then what happens when Kash Patel or Pam Bondi get in there and they say, actually, there were agents, and here were agents from this agency there, and from this agency there, and then they're going to say, well, yeah, but those people are always there. That's just the normal crowd control type stuff, and yeah, you have plainclothes.
Yeah, they're expected to be there. They were stationed there for a reason.
Correct.
We needed them to be there, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, and so the problem has always been, right, it's going to be, what were the assets doing? To me, it makes little difference. Let's look at two scenarios. Let's look at the scenario that would be really bad for intel agencies, law enforcement, and then we'll look at the opposite. So the scenario that would be really bad, it wouldn't matter to me if it's an FBI agent or a confidential human source that's working in tandem with the FBI. If
Ray Epps.
If they're there intentionally inciting the negative actions, the violence. To me, there's little difference if it's Jim Smith, FBI agent, or Jim Smith, who has a contact with John Rodriguez at the FBI and have been discussing inciting violence. That's still the FBI. It's just an intermediary. We talked about this the other day, going over Mike Benz on Joe Rogan, the concept of NGOs. So the concept of like the Atlantic Council and all of these Global Democracy Initiative, all these places that are basically just cutouts that we could say, oh, these are civilian organizations, so that they could go out and do the things that it would be illegal for our FBI or our CIA to do. So if the CIA wants to censor Americans, they can't do that, right? But they could pay millions of dollars to an organization that is staffed with former CIA operatives that goes ahead and does that. Right?
Wasn't that what happened with Facebook or like one of the social media groups? Right. They had that.
And you hear this a lot. Like Mike Benz goes through this quite thoroughly. All of these organizations that get paid through our taxes that answer to our intel services, but they're the civilian cutout, like the Atlantic Council, that's got like 4 former heads of the CIA on the board of the Atlantic Council, right? But they're an NGO, or they're domestic. They're not. They're not a government agency.
Yeah, they're not held to the same standard.
Correct. So you can't say. So if they would pressure to censor someone's free speech, that's not the government censoring you, even though they're financed by the government and they're operating with the same agenda that the government wants. It's just, well, the CIA can't censor you, but the Atlantic Council can. They can pressure companies to censor you. It's that sort of thing. So the idea that we're now seeing this narrative that's being ran is, well, they're confidential human sources, so nothing to see here. There's 26 of them. So what? No big deal. Well, the devil's in the details. What did the CHSs do? Were they the ones holding the door, yelling to people, come on in? Were they the ones that were pushing police officers and stuff? Because if so, any sort of investigation, like a cursory look into like the philosophy or the psychology, I should say, around mob violence, it doesn't take a lot of people to kick things off. Now, that doesn't excuse someone who engaged in a violent action, but it's quite easy to manipulate large crowds, and our intel agents and FBI have a long history of doing this. There was a report that went under the radar, actually about one of the Black Lives Matter, I can't remember if it was BLM or Antifa, it might have been Antifa, about this confidential human source that was working with the FBI that got in with Antifa, and he sold himself as like some merc. He was basically some dude that, like, I read this whole report about it. It was crazy. He sold himself to these people like he was some badass that was fighting in, like, internal jungle conflict and shit around the world. He's training them like, it's just a bunch of, like, stupid LARPing kids who have a tendency maybe to commit violence. But this dude's training them like, here's how you make these sorts of weapons. And here's the targets that we need to target. Right? And here's this dude in there doing this. And then he's reporting all this shit back to the FBI. And we know that there was organizations around civil rights organizations where the FBI was doing that stuff. So the idea that they wouldn't be doing it here, and we can see what they did with the Gretchen Whitmer thing. So the question is, what did these CHSs do? And I look forward to getting more specific details on that. So that's scenario one. And the media is just like, oh, they weren't FBI agents there. This report says it, end all be all. It was a conspiracy theory. No, it shows what we've been saying all along, that there was a large number of people there. In fact, a number so large in the 20s, that's just from this FBI that's been reported. That's not any of the other agencies. And I think that
that's just one report. Who else
Correct.
is going to be actually on there? What's the actual total count for that? And the crazy portion about it is, like, me personally, I don't think anything's going to come from this. I think that what's going to happen is they're going to say, yep, here's the report, here's what's going on. Nothing's going to happen.
I agree. That's probably what's most likely scenario, but we'll see. So that's number one. And number two is, right, like, what were the specific actions that these people were taking? Now, let me give the opposite side of the coin.
Sure.
Okay, there's 26 CHSs there. But what if they didn't do anything? What if they're the last person in the Capitol? They just went, what if they're, because the report does say that there was stuff lost in communication. And some of the stuff was reports before January 6th from groups like the Oath Keepers that there could be potential violence, that there were going to be 200 potential Oath Keepers there. And it does give this throwaway line about reporting during the riot. So if, let's say I belong to a motorcycle club, and the FBI starts investigating them and they pick me up on some petty crime. And they're like, look, man, you back payment of child support or some shit. Your ass is going to jail. You're going to jail, man, unless you start informing about what's going on with this, motorcycle club you're on. And I'm like, okay. And then the motorcycle club, they're at a big brawl, a barroom brawl, right? And I call in as it's going on. I'm like, oh my God, they're like kicking the shit out of these dudes. And the handler says, stay there. You got to report on everything. Keep an eye open.
Yeah, you're a guy on the inside. You need you to be there.
And in the context of that, some dude from the other club throws a haymaker at me and I block it and shove him down and he sprains his ankle. Now, you might say, well, that looks real nefarious. There was an FBI confidential human source that was there starting shit, getting in fights. Well, yeah, but when you look at the specific details, not really. Like, I wasn't encouraging the violence. I wasn't actively participating. I may have been in the area where there was a riot or a big fight going on. So it could be that. It hypothetically could be that all of these CHSs were just like, holy shit, we're on the phone right now with the FBI, and they're saying, yes, go into the Capitol. Obviously, don't break shit, don't do stuff, but we need someone there just so we have eyes on the situation. That's possible. I think it's highly unlikely. So, in many ways, this report doesn't get to the meat and potatoes of what were these informants doing? What were they, what was, not just what was their role in reporting to the FBI, but what were they saying to these groups that they were involved with before January 6th and during January 6th? That's
the only thing that would probably like answer is basically say, hey, who's Ray Epps? What's the whole point of this? And there's no answer to that at all. We know he's not an FBI agent. We would think, well, at least I certainly hope he's not an FBI agent, because he would be on the books. There'd be something for him. There'd be something to at least, attribute to him. But he just seems to be some random dude that like said, hey, go into the Capitol. We need to go in. And like, it's either borderline, like, yeah, there is an FBI informant that, got paid to do stuff, or he's just an insider that just got off the hook for one reason or another.
Well, I mean, there's all sorts of possibilities of who Ray Epps could be.
Yeah.
What's indisputable is he definitely got disparately light treatment. People got far harsher treatment than him for doing far less. You can see him on the videos. He's one of the first people pushing through the gates. He's there the day of and the day before instructing people to break into the Capitol. So why was he let off so easy? It could be that even before January 6th, he was a paid informant. It could be as benign as he was like, oh shit, I promise to rat out everyone and anyone if you just give me a slap on the wrist, please. And maybe he gave them information that we're still not privy to, where he was like, I was, the night before I was saying this crazy shit, and then all of a sudden these dudes pulled me aside like, here's our game plan of how we're going to break into the Capitol, and I could give you all their names. And I can instruct you exactly where they went. And so the FBI's like, okay, if you do that, we'll give you a slap on the wrist. That's possible. Now, what I would say is, well, at some point, don't we have the right to know that? Like, because...
Right. I'd say transparency. Where's the transparency?
Correct. So is it going to be one of these situations with, like, the JFK files where we're told, like, 50 years later, well, we still can't release the information because there's ongoing investigations 40 years
I'm so interested to see what's going to happen with that. I don't know what's going to come out from it, but I'm so interested to see what happens from that.
Yeah. Cody Folsom, thanks for the super chat for $2. Says, good luck. Hey, Rob, good luck to Penn State next weekend. Thank you. I am a Penn State fan. I'm more of a Pitt fan. But, yeah, I'm hoping Penn State does well. My brother is a huge Penn State fan. So he'll definitely be checking out that. So, yeah, I mean, I want to read the report myself and see what's going on. Oh, there's my brother right now. He's in the chat, Jojo Geeker. He's one of the biggest Penn State fans you'll ever see. So I'm sure he'll be excited to watch the game. So I definitely want to read the full report. But that's the questions that immediately rise is, okay, why weren't these CHSs charged? What were the CHSs reporting before January 6th? What were the actions they were taking on January 6th, right? That's what I want to know. And then the other big question I have from this is, if it's true in the IG report, again, I've only read like 1 or 2 pages, so it may answer all of this, and I will read the report, and I'll try to give a thorough response of what it says. But it does seem to suggest on the couple overview that I read that there was reporting from these CHSs both before and during January 6th that sort of got lost in the shuffle. And my question's always been, given the reporting we had of Capitol Chief Son, well, let's forget Capitol Chief Son for a second. These things don't add up. If this really was an insurrection and it was really pre-planned and we had all of these confidential human sources that were involved in all of these organizations that was planning this violent coup or insurrection, whatever the hell you want to call it, why wasn't there adequate security?
Yeah.
That's the question, right? That's what a real January 6th committee would be looking at. How did this happen? How can it be? And especially then when you start to hear Capitol Chief Sund, who's he's reporting not only was there not adequate security, there was less professionalism and security with this event that you would suspect was going to be inflamed passions, a lot of people there, than almost every other rally or protest that occurs in D.C. Why is that?
Well, yeah, but wasn't it also that Pelosi also she was given the guy from Trump, hey, get National Guard down there, and she refused?
Yeah, there is.
What was that?
There's a lot to go. I'll talk about that here later tonight. But yeah, there's a lot to do with the Sergeant at Arms under Nancy Pelosi, who kept denying and claimed later in reporting we have from Capitol Chief Sund says when he talked to the Sergeant at Arms under Mitch McConnell months after January 6th, he had dinner with him. That Sergeant at Arms told him that the Sergeant at Arms under Pelosi specifically said, yeah, Pelosi's not going to go for allowing the National Guard there. It would look bad for optics. And that word kept coming up. It would look bad for optics. So
it always comes back to optics. It always just goes back to that.
So that's Paul Irving's the Sergeant at Arms under Nancy Pelosi, and then Stenger was the Sergeant at Arms under McConnell, who's dead now, who passed away. So we'll no longer hear from him, which sucks. But so that's the question, and that's always been the biting question for me, right? How can these things simultaneously be true, that we had all of this intel that this was going to be this incredibly violent day, that they were going to attempt to overthrow the government, and yet security was a joke? Or is it that, no, there was just normal chatter, it wasn't that big of a deal, it was just a riot that got slightly out of hand, and then post hoc they said, let's throw the book at these guys and we'll say, oh, we had all this information beforehand that we thought was just tough guy talk, but now we're going to say it was planning an insurrection. I think that my personal theory is that they knew and possibly had some involvement in setting up that there was people that were going to go there with the idea of at least having some form of violence, and they wanted it to occur. They didn't want there to be proper security to prevent it from getting out of
because it'd be good optics.
That's
it would be
correct.
Good optics for them.
It would be good for them to put the nail in the coffin of MAGA and say, this is it. And which regardless of what your theory is, that's what happened, at least temporarily. Right. Because all of a sudden you weren't even allowed to question on social media any election discrepancies from 2020. You couldn't. It was
either by plannedness or being unintentional with it. That's the result of what happened.
Exactly. That's absolutely the result. So that's the question I have, and we'll see. Hopefully, I'm with you. I don't think anyone major will ever be held accountable, but maybe we'll at least see more information come out there. But what we know today, I'm going to get to a little bit about Merrick Garland, and we know some things about him. But what we do know today is one of the easiest calls in history was there were tons of law enforcement assets on the ground. And I bet a lot of them broke the law and went into the Capitol, etc. That was one of the easiest predictions ever to make. And you were called a crazy conspiracy theorist if you made it. And it's been vindicated. It's been absolutely vindicated. And now those people are just like they always do. You know, it's amazing. It looks like the FBI used unverified opposition research to spy on Trump's team. They didn't spy on Trump's team too. Okay, they spied, but that's because they had good information. It wasn't paid for by the opposition too. Well, okay, it was paid for by the opposition, but they verified it and it was true too. Well, okay, they didn't verify everything in it, but they attempted to verify it too. Well, okay, they didn't attempt to verify it, but you know, the accusations were so bad. And besides, this wasn't the only reason they got the warrant too. Well, okay, they admitted that they wouldn't have been able to get the warrant without this, and likely the FISA warrants were illegal, but still, it's a long time ago. Who cares? It's the same thing.
It's good that it happened. We're glad it happened.
Right. It's the same thing here. Now it'll be, well, we always knew there were CHSs, a bunch of them on the ground. We always knew it.
Yeah. Did you think the FBI wouldn't have people down there? It'd be insane for them not to be there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and now they're saying we never denied it. We didn't deny that there were CHSs on the ground, right? That's always been the question. It's not just the CHSs on the ground, and I'll give that to the lefties today. They could say it doesn't matter if there was 500 CHSs on the ground. What did they do? Exactly.
Either one they were super ineffective and they weren't able to stop something, or two, something more nefarious.
The question is, why don't we know what they did?
Exactly.
We're 4 years beyond there and we don't know. Don't you think that's outrageous? For example, if
don't you think that's supreme incompetence, that people need to be fired over this, that people need to be held accountable for this, that
if
need to be redone because of this?
If our government was paying people that engaged in violent behavior against our law enforcement, don't you think the American people deserve to know that? Don't you think someone needs to be held accountable? But we don't know. Instead, they were just like, how dare you? How dare you even mention this? You're a crazy conspiracy theorist. So, but hey, I'm going to let you go. I see you got another call. But thanks so much.
I appreciate you. Thanks again.
Yeah, yep. Take it easy, Cloak Shadow.
Take care of yourself.
Talk soon. Yep. Oh, I see Joker left now. So I had another call. But good call. Let's play a clip for you. Shall we? We shall. Now, one of the best people in the country on this has been Thomas Massie. Now, I want you to listen to his questioning of our current Attorney General, the head of the DOJ, and the head of the FBI, because the DOJ is in charge of them. Let's do this all the time. I want you to hear this questioning from Thomas Massie on, this is 10/21/21 of Merrick Garland.
Okay, I was hoping today to give you an opportunity to put to rest the concerns that people have that there were federal agents or assets of the federal government present on January 5th and January 6th. Can you tell us, without talking about particular incidents or particular videos, how many agents or assets of the federal government were present on January 6th, whether they agitated to go into the Capitol, and if any of them did?
So I'm not going to violate this norm of the rule of law. I'm not going to comment on an investigation that's ongoing.
On that video, that was your answer to a question to me 2 years ago. When I said how many agents or assets of the government were present on January 5th and January 6th and agitating in the crowd to go into the Capitol, and how many went into the Capitol. Can you answer that now?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, last time, you don't know how many there were, or there were none?
I don't know the answer to either of those questions. If there were any, I don't know how many. I don't know whether there are any.
I think you may have just perjured yourself that you don't know that there were any. You want to say that again, that you don't know that there were any?
I have no personal knowledge of this matter. I think what I said last time.
You've had 2 years to find out.
Listen to this again. Now, this is from 9/20/2023.
Question to me 2 years ago. When I said how many agents or assets of the government were present on January 5th and January 6th and agitating in the crowd to go into the Capitol, and how many went into the Capitol. Can you answer that now?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, last time,
let me replay.
You don't know how many government were present on January 5th and January That was your answer to a question to me 2 years ago.
Listen to how
when
he
I
phrases
said how
this.
many agents or assets of the government were
Agents or assets, which would include confidential human sources, CHSs. Not just agents, agents or assets. How many were there? And were there any there?
present on January 5th and January 6th and agitating in the crowd to go into the Capitol, and how many went into the Capitol? Can you answer that now?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, last time, you don't know how many there were, or there were none?
I don't know the answer to either of those questions. If there were any, I don't know how many. I don't know whether there are any.
I think you may have just perjured yourself that you don't know that there were any. You want to say that again, that you don't know that there were
I have
any?
no personal knowledge of this matter. I think what I said the last time.
You've had 2 years to find out.
Now, do we really believe that at this point, in September of 2023, January 6th has at this point became to my knowledge, the largest FBI task force in the history of its existence, going after January 6th. The DOJ and the FBI is treating it like basically the biggest FBI investigation ever. The Democrats are saying that this is like the most important issue in the country, the worst day since 9/11 or since Pearl Harbor. And the guy in charge of it all, the Attorney General, doesn't know in September of 2023 whether there were any CHSs on the ground, any assets or agents from the FBI on the ground on January 6th. He doesn't know. How did he not have access to the information that IG Horowitz, who just did the IG report, had access to? How did he not? What's the explanation here? That Merrick Garland was so disinterested in the events of January 6th, of the largest investigation that his FBI was running, that he didn't even ask the most basic of information like, hey, how do we got information on what was going on? Well, we had confidential human sources that were on the ground and that were reporting to us and blah, 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 blah. That's what we're supposed to believe? That's what the defense is. Andrew Stott's right. The defense is going to be, I didn't ask anything. I just let them do everything. It was like, oh, I didn't know. Or is he lying? And you know what the excuse is going to be. You know what the Democrat excuse is going to be. What is it every time? Oh, it's just incompetence. That's it. Merrick Garland he wasn't keeping informed of what was going on January 6th with the January 6th investigation. Does anyone think there is even one iota of a chance that the Attorney General didn't know that there was even one CHS in the crowd? At least if he gives the stereotypical, I'm not, like Chris Wray, I believe when he was asked basically this exact question was like, I can't comment on ongoing specific investigations. But to say, I don't know if there were CHSs there? Does anyone believe that? Now, I remember when General Flynn got charged because they said, did you have a conversation about with Kislyak in Russia about sanctions, etc.? And he said, I don't know, that could have happened. And when I debated people on the left, they said, that's bullshit. He knew, that's why he was charged. But Merrick Garland didn't know if there were CHSs in 2023, in September of 2023. He didn't know. That's what I'm supposed to believe. Either he is the most incompetent, ineffectual attorney general imaginable, or he's lying. Neo Jackass says, Rob, maybe he couldn't acknowledge the existence of these assets because of the high likelihood of them being identified from the video. Then he could have said, I can't comment, like Chris Wray did. He doesn't say, I don't know. That's a lie. Oh, we got a raid going. Thanks so much. Who raided? Whoever raided on Twitch, thank you very much. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. Now we find out after the election, after January 6th was one of like the two biggest talking points going against Trump in the election. Now it's like, oh yeah, there were CHSs there. Now we can say. Which changed, by the way, if that's true, Neo Jackass, why can the IG say there were CHSs there? Wouldn't it be the same risk today as there was in 2023? And weren't people assuming anyways? Weren't people assuming going through the video saying some of these people may be CHSs? If you're one of the thousands of people that got charged, aren't you going to be thinking, I wonder who was in that crowd that was trying to rat everyone out to the FBI? People told me my raid earlier worked. It just took a little while. So Merrick Garland had to lie to Congress in 2023, but now IG Horowitz in 2024, it's safe enough for him to now tell the truth? The investigations aren't concluded. They just arrested someone 3 days ago for January 6th stuff. They're not. So that excuse isn't going to fly. Everything about that day is such utter, and the official narrative is such utter and complete bullshit. We're supposed to believe that the Democrats and Liz Cheney and Adam Kissinger took this event so seriously, and yet none of them questioned why Paul Irving, the Sergeant at Arms under Nancy Pelosi, and Capitol Chief Sund, literally the person directed and in charge of security of the Capitol, both completely contradicted each other under oath, and no one cares. No one cares to get to the bottom of it on the January 6th committee. Why? Paul Irving said, the first time that Capitol Chief Sund called me, the very first time he called me and requested permission to request the National Guard, I said, yep. Chief Sund says, I called him 17 times. He continually said, I got to run it up the chain of command. By the way, I have the call log saved proving that. Now, isn't part of the idea of having a committee looking into that day? Sure, I understand part of it's who were these people that did this? But isn't part of it what were the failures that we had security-wise, and how do we make sure it doesn't happen again? Isn't that part of it? What a poor excuse. Neo Jackass, I can't help but think the hoops that you would be willing to jump through to excuse the blatant corruption or incompetence. Well, maybe what it is it just so happened to be the exact right time that now there will still be January 6 cases, but none that involve the confidential human sources. So in 2023, their lives were in jeopardy. If Merrick Garland would have admitted, sure, there may have been some CHSs in the crowd. I don't know the exact figure. They couldn't say that because their lives would be in jeopardy and there could be ongoing cases involving CHSs. But there will be no cases involving any CHS testimony going forward. Therefore, that's why now we could now learn the truth. Okay, if that's the truth, Neo Jackass, then I admit that you'll say this was incredibly corrupt. If we see one more case that uses a CHS going forward, right? Then you would say, oh, then clearly corrupt. Correct? I understand the proclivity for people that want to defend these institutions to make any excuse whatsoever. I get it. It's the same excuse. Well, the FBI, top FBI lawyers didn't know that you're not supposed to change evidence to say the opposite of the truth. When they got an email from the CIA saying, yes, Carter Page did work as an asset for us to help go after Russians, and they changed it to, no, he didn't. That was just incompetence. They didn't know. There wasn't anything nefarious. It's not procedure. Procedure is to say, we don't discuss ongoing investigations. That's procedure. It's not to say, I don't know if there's an investigation, if you know there is an investigation. That's not procedure. Why is there such an curiosity for the Democrats and all of their supporters that talk about how important January 6th? Why don't they care about that? Either Paul Irving or Capitol Chief Sund are lying. One of the two are lying. Directly contradictory testimony. Sund says, I welcome it. I got all the receipts. Let's talk about it. But the Democrats are like, nah, it's not that important. Really? How do we know that Paul Irving, who denied the request of the National Guard, maybe he was involved in the insurrection with Donald Trump, right? Let's throw his ass in jail for perjuring himself, right? No one's concerned with that. Or how about the lieutenant general or whatever? Once the request was put in on the phone call by Sund, said, nah, we don't want the National Guard there for optics. So I'm supposed to believe that this military man saw what he thought was an ongoing coup that may murder the vice president and members of Congress and was like, yeah, but I don't want to prevent it because it would look bad to prevent that murder and that coup. That's the official narrative. That's what we're told. And the Democrats go, yeah, makes sense. Yep. Okay, Neo Jackass says, well, the reason is the first level letter in confidential human source is confidential. Cool, then why are they admitting to it now? I guess that violated that confidentiality, huh? Intel Wild for $2 says, can we put the CIA on notice? Why not? I don't know that, as someone who's on notice perpetually myself, I don't know if I could put anyone else on notice. Oh, I agree, James Dumas. It's coming out now that Trump might get people in there to look into it. So Chris Wray resigns a couple days before the report comes out. $131 people in my YouTube chat right now. Thank you guys so much. 21 on Twitch. And then it's hard to tell on X. It says 109, but I think that's cumulative. Hiccups. Jeez, oh man. Also, there's very little in here about the most significant situation that had happened. Someone tell me, what was the most serious thing that occurred January 6th when it comes to potential violence? If you've followed the show a lot, you know. I said this right out of the gate. We already had an FBI investigation into January 6th, but we needed a January 6th committee. I said, well, there are questions that need to be answered by January 6th. One, why were there so many failures in security? January 6th committee, uninterested in finding that. You could say that Ashley Babbitt dying. Yeah, Rad Robot gets it. It's the pipe, the explosives. That's serious. That's literally serious. If someone put explosives at our Capitol, that's deadly serious. And I mean that. I don't care if they're a Trump supporter, if they're an FBI asset, whatever. That person needs held accountable. That's no joke. Bennie Thompson, that led the January 6th committee, he doesn't know nothing about it. Let me see if I can find this clip. It's surreal to me. I covered this on the show. Almost no one talked about this. So we're going to run through
Gentleman
this.
from
Double
Kentucky
speed
is
'cause it's 20
recognized for
minutes,
whatever
and I don't know
questions
how
he may
much.
have for the panel.
Thank you, Chairman Cole.
About a time and a half.
Ranking Member Thompson, were you chairman of the January 6th committee?
Yes,
And what was the purpose of that committee?
to look at the facts and circumstances that brought about the actions of January 6th and make recommendations as to Congress. And
Now, again, this is the head of the January 6th committee, right? This testimony is from February 2024. So this is after the January 6th committee wrapped up, okay?
And that it would not happen again.
And so it included things up to January 6th and also including the day of January 6th.
That's correct.
Is it true that the Secret Service cell phone records were deleted for that day on January 6th?
I'm not certain that all of them. We had difficulty with getting some of them.
Was your investigation hindered in part by the deletion of those Secret Service text messages?
We could have had a better and more thorough report had we had access to all those records
When did you discover those messages were deleted?
during the course of the investigation.
Who was the Secretary of Homeland Security at that time?
January,
No, when you discovered the messages were deleted.
Alejandro Mayorkas.
Secretary Mayorkas was the Secretary of Homeland Security when you found out those messages were deleted.
Yes, as best I can recollect.
Do you recollect making this statement with Ms. Cheney? And I'll ask to submit this for the record. It's a July 20th, 2022 statement by Thompson and Cheney on the United States Secret Service's response to the Select Committee subpoena. I won't read the whole thing, but here I believe you said, 4 House committees had already sought these critical records from the Department of Homeland Security before the records were apparently lost. Additionally, the procedure for preserving content prior to this purge appears to have been contrary to federal records retention requirements and may represent a possible violation of the Federal Records Act. The Select Committee is seeking additional Secret Service records as well. Every effort must be made to retrieve the lost data as well. Do you still believe there may have been a violation of the Federal Records Act?
Yes.
And when do you think these Secret Service records were deleted?
They were deleted when President Trump was in office. We found out about them later.
So here's a statement of Anthony Guglielmi, Chief of Communications for the United States Secret Service, on accusations of deleted text for DHS Inspector General. I asked unanimous consent to submit this for the record.
Without objection.
And I also asked unanimous consent, if I forgot to do it, for the Thompson-Cheney statement.
Without objection, so ordered.
So here, this is from the Secret Service themselves. Now, I believe that, before I get into that, I believe there were 4 committees chaired by Democrats who asked for preservation of all communications, including electronic.
Just so we're clear, what he's saying here is Secret Service that falls under Homeland Security that Mayorkas would be in charge of, they deleted their messages from the day of January 6th. Bennie Thompson had said previously, the head of the January 6th committee, if those records were deleted, it was probably against the law, a violation of the Record Keeping Act. Massie says, who is in charge? Mayorkas. And Massie says, do you still think it was a crime? Yes, Bennie Thompson says. And then Thompson says, but they were deleted when Trump was in office. That would mean Trump was only in office for 14 days after January 6th. So that would mean the Secret Service messages would have been deleted between the 6th and the 20th.
Communications of the Secret Service on January 6th. This is relevant because the Secret Service works for Homeland Security, correct?
They're in Homeland.
Yeah, they're in Homeland Security. Some people may think they're a Treasury, but after 9/11, they were transferred to Homeland Security. So here's what the Secret Service said about those records. It says that the OIG requested the communications on February 26th. After the migration was well underway, the Secret Service notified DHS OIG of the loss of certain phones' data, but confirmed to OIG that none of the texts it was seeking had been lost in the migration. I think we later found out they were lost, but what he says is on February 26th, the migration was underway. Didn't say it was complete, it said it was underway. Now, Secretary Mayorkas was confirmed on February 2nd. So this would have been 24 days after that the Secret Service themselves is saying they're still in the process of migrating. Now, what the Secret Service claimed is that they switched phones and phone providers and then deleted all of the old phones. But it seems, according to the Secret Service, that they were still in the process of doing that while Secretary Mayorkas was in charge of Homeland Security, which is the umbrella over the Secret Service. So I forgot if I asked you, do you still think it appears that there may have been a violation of the Federal Records Act?
Well, the issue of that.
Now, what he's saying here is, but wait a minute, the Secret Service says that it was an accident that these were deleted, that they switched phones, and that switch was still occurring in late February. And so when Bennie Thompson says, well, these were deleted between January 6th and January 20th, that doesn't appear to be what the Secret Service is suggesting. In which case, if this is against the law, why isn't he aggressively pursuing going after the current head of the DHS and the people that did that? Why isn't Mayorkas pursuing going after this? And then let's see Thompson's response.
With the Secret Service came up when the IG was trying to get access to the record and did not tell us that he was trying to get access to the record. We found that out later in the investigation.
Who kept you from getting access?
And just bear in the woods, this is something that happens all the time with these agencies. Strzok and Page's FBI phones were deleted after they were talking about insurance policies, etc. Mueller's team, all of their phones were deleted. This happens all the time. And this is particularly egregious in the Mueller case, right? Because what happened was Mueller was approached by the IG that was like, we're doing an investigation into Strzok and Page because of these messages on their FBI phones that talked about insurance policies to get Trump, etc., etc., etc. Now, apparently Bob Mueller was bothered by this enough that he kicked Strzok and Page off his team. So imagine, I just want you to imagine this just for a second. You're Bob Mueller. You're trying to run your special counselor. You know that it's a investigation fraught with political landmines. You're investigating the president of the United States and his team. You've been brought in because there's accusations that he fired the FBI to try to stop this investigation. You find out that two of your agents that are working on this are themselves under investigation by the IG because they had text messages on their work phones talking about insurance policies to prevent Donald Trump from winning. You're so concerned about this and the appearance of impropriety that you kick them off your team. Wouldn't the very next thing you do be to preserve those phones? Isn't that what you would do? You just heard that there's an investigation into their work phones from the FBI's time. So wouldn't the first thing you would do is say, oh, give me your phones, Strzok, Page. I need your phones right now. Put them on the desk. Okay, I'm sorry, you're going to have to be let go. There's accusation. We can't even have the appearance of impropriety. And then you would take those phones and you would contact the IG and say, we're making sure we save these records just in case there's any accusations that our investigation was politically biased. But no, what did they do? They deleted Strzok and Page's phone. They said, well, that's just normal procedure. We needed to free up space in case someone else needed the phone. Always, always, always their excuse. We just deleted them. I always love watching Judge Judy. This happens all the time. Judge Judy talks about this all the time. There'll be some case and they'll be like, yeah, I paid that loan back. I have a text message that they sent saying, my ex-wife said that, yeah, you paid the loan back. And Judy will say, can I see that text message? Actually, I got a new phone. She's like, why is that always the case? That's our FBI, though. They learn from the best. Our agencies.
Well, to be honest with you, a number of us four of us signed a letter asking for that information. But in reality, we were not afforded that opportunity to get it. But at the time we asked for it, the Trump administration was still there as president.
So did Secretary Mayorkas hold anybody accountable for the deletion of those records and those cell phone records?
I'm not aware of it.
Are you still trying to get them from Secretary Mayorkas?
Well, our committee has disbanded.
So you're not interested in that and pursuing that any further. The fact that you said, I'm going to read your words back to you, appears to be contrary to the federal records retention requirements and may represent a possible violation of the Federal Records Act. I think if four committees of Congress gave a preservation notice and the Secret Service deleted those communications, that's obstruction of Congress. I think we should still be looking into that, regardless of when we found out about it, and frankly, regardless of who the president is. But it seems to me that Mayorkas hasn't done anything about this. And according to the Secret Service statement from 2022, it looks like they were still in the process of deleting these cell phone records when Mayorkas was secretary. I would hope that he would be as troubled about this as I am. Let me tie this back. Who is responsible on January 6th? Who was responsible for the health and well-being of the incoming vice president?
Of the incoming?
This would be Senator Kamala Harris at the time. She was under the protection of them.
Well, obviously, Secret Service.
Correct, the Secret Service. So where was she on January 6th while all this was going on over at the Capitol?
I don't know.
Do you know there were pipe bombs allegedly present on January 6th?
I know there were two pipe bombs, one at the Democratic headquarters and one at the Republican.
So you're in charge of the entire investigation of what happened on January 6th and what led up to January 6th, and you don't know that the vice president was in the incoming vice president was in the DNC when that pipe bomb was sitting there. Dude.
I don't, we did not, our investigation was looking at the facts and circumstances. We knew that there were pipe bombs. I'm sure the evidence will say she was wherever she is, but, you know, I'm trying to get through your point.
Okay.
Do you see the point here? So there were bombs within feet of the incoming vice president of the United States. And the guy in charge of the investigation into January 6th in Congress doesn't even know the most bare details. Doesn't know. That wasn't really our priority. The evidence will say whatever it says. How could you not know that? That's public knowledge. Now, the reason this matters is actually it was kept from the public for quite some time. It's so weird. You can't even blame many of the Democrats. You really can't blame AOC, for example, for playing up how traumatic the events of that day were for her. They may have been that traumatic for her. Of course, she wasn't in the actual building. She was in an adjacent building. But nonetheless, who am I to say how you would feel if there was a riot outside your place of work? Perhaps you're traumatized to some of it. But you certainly could understand the political expediency in playing that up. If people for the opposition are rioting and you're fearful. Same could be true if Trump would have done the same when violent left-wingers were lighting buildings on fire outside the White House and attacking the White House gates. In May 30th, 2020. Trump could have played it up. It would have been beneficial to him. Trump, however, took the bait and was like, I'm a tough guy. Nothing scares me. That was Trump's approach. Whatever. Why is Kamala Harris the only person in the Democrats that isn't doing that? Don't you think that would have been... Why didn't she even do it going into the 2024 election? Why wouldn't she? If I was advising Kamala Harris, when they're saying, oh, Trump, January 6th, threat to democracy. If I was her, I would have constantly been like, those pipe bombs were feet away from me. Just feet away. But they've always kind of downplayed it. The incoming vice president's schedule is... Why? Clearly, we could see that the Democrats and the January 6th committee hyped up the threat to members of Congress and VPs and etc. Why didn't they make a big deal out of this? How is it that the most significant thing that happened that day, they know next to nothing? Oh, I don't know, pipe bombs, I don't know. Leave this play out a little more. And that's before, the ironic thing here is, in February, I knew where Thomas Massie was going. I'd read the reports by Revolver. I saw the videos that showed supposedly the Secret Service finding the bomb and how weird the entire situation was. So Massie's clearly going to ask the head of the January 6th committee about this. And Bennie Thompson, and the most publicly available evidence right out of the gate, the most cursory information about the pipe bombs, like, I don't know. I don't really know nothing about it.
Well, my point is, if this bomb had gone off just a few feet from her, this could have been the worst assassination since JFK. And I looked at your January 6th report, and can you tell me what you wrote about this pipe bomb and the fact that she was almost blown up that day? The gentleman, not right now.
No, it's in the report in terms of the submission. It's not in the 850-page document.
So you guys your committee did investigate the pipe bomb or did not investigate the pipe bomb?
I'm trying to figure out, we're not a criminal investigation. We are, we were an oversight body looking at the facts and circumstances. We were not a criminal body to see who laid the bomb or anything like that.
Okay, I'll give you that. But it seems like a lot of criminal indictments came out of the result of your investigation. But here's my concern. So we unearthed the video, I don't know if you've seen it, when that second pipe bomb is found. And the Secret Service, it's a videotape of the DNC, and a person who doesn't have a uniform on, we're told it's a Capitol Hill police officer, found that bomb, walked over to incoming Vice President Kamala Harris's detail, told them there was a pipe bomb. Now, I believe that to be true because I've since talked to the Capitol Police and talked to one of the people on the scene that day. They went over and told the Secret Service detail there was a pipe bomb there. On this video, about 4 minutes elapsed before the Secret Service responds. This is why I'm interested. I know you were very interested at one point in the deletion of these Secret Service text messages, but this is why I am interested. And I would have thought the January 6th committee would have been interested in the two most threatening weapons that were present on January 6th that day. But what happens is
That's absolutely correct. And that's why the deletion of the Secret Service messages are so important. Because we can see from this video, It's supposedly an off-duty police officer sees this pipe bomb below a bench, and there's video from a street camera there. He walks up to the Secret Service in a car and has this very casual conversation with them, and they take their time. It's like 4 minutes. Meanwhile, people are walking on the sidewalk within inches of this bomb. They've just been told, I think there's a suspicious package or a bomb or whatever was said under that bench, like behind that bench there. Oh, okay. Oh, we'll get around to that in a minute. Meanwhile, kids are walking by. And so Thomas Massie is taking this serious like me. I don't give a shit if that was a Trump supporter that put it. They need to be in prison. That's insane. That's how Thomas Massie's looking at it. Why are we getting, like, no information on this? We want to see what the communication was from the Secret Service at the moment they were informed about that weapon. But it was deleted. Now we just don't know. And no one seems to be interested. Oh, well, yeah, that's illegal that they deleted it. Oh, well. We're not going to get to the bottom of it. Oh, well. That wasn't really our goal. That's why Massie's saying this was the most important event that occurred that day. It had the potential to be one of the worst political assassinations in the history of this country. And there's, like, no urgency. The same people that are, like, celebrating, going after blue-haired grandmas that walk between the velvet ropes in the Capitol, throw them in jail. When it comes to the pipe bomb, it's like, no big deal. Kids walking past the pipe bomb, no big deal.
Police officer, without a uniform on, but must have been known as a police officer to the Secret Service, tells the Secret Service, there's a bomb over here. It takes them 4 minutes for the Secret Service to respond. It takes them 10 minutes to evacuate Kamala Harris, and this bomb is maybe 15 feet from the building that she's in. And this is why I wonder if you're still the least, a bit curious about why Secretary Mayorkas has not followed up on the deletion of all these Secret Service texts. Does it bother you that they deleted them?
Well, it bothers me that we did not have access to all the tapes, but it also is within the purview of the OIG. And we don't have any say-so as to what they do until they finish their report. To my knowledge, they've not completed that report.
Well, there were 4 committees, as you told us here, that requested preservation of those Secret Service communications, and they specifically said including electronic communications. And then the Secret Service proceeds to migrate the phones to a different carrier and destroy the phones that were in their possession. Part of this migration, at least part of this migration, happened while Secretary Mayorkas was in charge of the DHS, which is what the Secret Service is part of and reports to. This is concerning to me. I don't know if I would have drafted the same articles of impeachment that we see here today. I think if you gave 435 people the job, you get 435 answers. But one of the things that concerns me greatly is here we had on January 6th, what we are being told are by the FBI and the ATF, viable bombs within just feet of the incoming vice president, first African-American female vice president in the history of this country, is within feet of a bomb, a viable bomb, for over an hour. The Secret Service takes forever to respond to it. And here we have Secretary Mayorkas, who was over all of this, not on that day, but I'm not as concerned about that day as I am now about the information we can't get and the information that he hasn't tried to get, as far as I can tell. And I've spoken to the OIG about this. There's apparently it's still the word of the Secret Service that this stuff is deleted and it ain't never coming back, because they didn't just delete the election.
So we'll leave it go there. I do want to respond to something Neo Jack has said up top, living up to your name. He says, Kamala Harris couldn't talk about January 6th stuff because of the ongoing DOJ investigations. Had she, the right wing would have screamed about how she's directing or influencing investigations on our political opponent. What a load of shit. That is one of the most... So the reason that Kamala... What he's trying to say is, had Kamala Harris came out like Kissinger, AOC, Elizabeth Warren, pretty much every Democrat senator, and said, I felt threatened... That would have, it was okay for Kissinger and Liz Cheney and AOC. That wasn't influencing an election. But Kamala Harris was sworn to duty by law that she couldn't say, I felt threatened that that pipe bomb was so close to me. Because that would have been influencing an investigation. I mean, do you see the lengths that people are willing to go? No, he's not on Twitch. He's right there on YouTube. There's so many other problems with that pipe bomb. I just did a show last month. There's now reporting that said, remember the FBI said, well, here's what happened. Because we have video of the alleged pipe bomber on a cell phone. So wouldn't the cell phone carriers have picked it up? It turns out, we're told by the FBI, it just so happened that one of the cell phone carriers told the FBI, sorry, our data was all corrupted from that day. So that's probably where that was probably the carrier. Bad luck on our part, I guess. Only it turns out that according to, I think it was Grassley and their investigation into it, they've reached out to all the cell phone companies and they all said, that's not true. We've never said that. We didn't send a letter to the FBI or any communications to the FBI sending that. Then, as someone mentioned previously, there was a timer that was only an hour timer. But this bomb was placed in the wee hours of the morning. So how could you have an hour timer designed to go off during the January 6th protest if you're placing it in the middle of the night? None of it makes sense. So we'll see. The IG report, I need to read through it completely. But, of course, on the initial take to have of it is, you can see how Garland's lying. You can see how shady the situation around this was in the first place. Kudos to people like Thomas Massie that have been there, talking about this all the while. But there certainly needs to be more investigation into what was happening. That's right, Bear in the Woods. They don't want to find out who placed that pipe bomb because the American people might not like the answer. It may go against the narrative. What if it was a confidential human source that placed that pipe bomb? Then what? You want to know the truth? This is the truth. If we found out that a confidential human source for the FBI or some other law enforcement agency in the United States placed that pipe bomb, almost every single Democrat that I've debated on this, they wouldn't give a shit. It wouldn't change anything to them. It wouldn't change at all. They'd say, well, that still doesn't change what the rioters did. And, so what? That guy did that. So what? No big deal. That doesn't mean the FBI told him to, and even if the FBI did, it's not that big of a deal. And it was a long time ago. Who's still worried about January 6th? We had 4 years of Russiagate, biggest story in the country, all bullshit. Then once we started to get the receipts, it was bullshit. What did they say? That's a long time ago. Who cares? What can we do about it now? 4 years of January 6th. Now it'll be the same thing. It's a long time ago. Who gives a shit? Now, if Neo Jackass or anyone else wants to call in, I would welcome the call in. Otherwise, got some other things that we could talk about, but I will put the link to the Discord up again if anyone wants to call in. Talk about this or any other topic. The plan tomorrow is to do a legitimate call-in show tomorrow evening. I put a video up today. I showed this on my earlier stream. from my wonderful X account. Oh man, you should really be following me on X. I hear my man downstairs arguing with my wife. What's he going on? He's funny. I love this guy. I have the best son. He's tremendous. Look at that handsome fellow. Also not wearing a hat. It's been not a big hat day for me. We'll make it big. You ready? Bald! Here we go. Left-wing streamer Destiny wants to know, where are all the right-wingers at that are debating people? Well, the truth is we're out there. You see, Destiny wouldn't know that, though, because anytime he gets schooled by a right-winger in a debate like me, what he does is he puts them on a blacklist, or he blocks them on places like X, because he gets tired of getting shown up, so he only goes in to debate people that he thinks it'll somehow have some benefit to him, some larger channel, or he'll debate people that he's confident that he'll be able to bully around with the normal tactics that he uses. But when it comes to competent people that are able to school him in debates, well, then he acts like a crybaby and rage quits like the last time he did with me, and then makes excuses after the fact. He doesn't want people in his orbit associating with people that smack him around in debates, and that's why he's so big on putting these blacklists, which is all fine. He has the right to do all of this, but please don't act like a tough guy that right-wingers are the ones that are unwilling to debate. You only debate people when you see a strategic advantage for you, or when you know it's people could bully around. If it's people that school you like me, all of a sudden, it's blacklist, baby. So I put that up, and of course, you can see here, I get engagement on that, but you get a lot of the Destiny orbiters that come out of the woodwork and, which I don't mind. That's fine. They have to have something. They like their daddy, so they got to go to bat for him, which is fine. But there was one that I thought was worth mentioning here. And that's this gentleman, Andrew Marcato. Apparently a streamer. He says, it's because I'm dog shit at debating. You had to mute me multiple times to talk over me and tell your audience what I was saying instead of letting me speak during the debate. You laughed at the entire time. I said, you're a terrible debater, got crushed. You continually talked over me and begged to be muted. Anytime you'd like to debate, I'd be more than happy to do it. I'm free tonight if you aren't a coward. So if I said he was a coward, he didn't call in tonight and said he would not be calling in. But I thought it'd be funny. I wanted to do this anyways. Excuse me. To go back and... Oh, and here you see Rob GPT. That's how it'll end. Is that nice? Very original there. But what I wanted to do was, I thought it'd be nice to go back and look at some of that debate I had with Andrew Marcato. Why not? So let's see if I can find this. Maybe. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to fully admit this isn't my greatest performance of all time. But Andrew Marcato has been on X many a time since he called into my show, talking about how terrible of a debater I am and how he crushed me. Now, this debate was a call-in show, and it occurred, let's see if I can find the date on this. This was October 2nd, 2024, which feels like a lifetime ago. It was the day after the VP debate. Now, I think in retrospect, the VP debate, I was doing a lot of debates around this time. I think my take on it was exactly right. I thought that it was an absolute crushing performance by JD Vance, that Tim Walz got crushed. And I thought that JD Vance did exactly what I said Trump should have did in his debate with Kamala Harris, which was to focus on the issues. The track record on the economy, on the border, and on foreign policy was better under Donald Trump than it was the Harris-Biden administration. And JD Walz masterfully did that. That was what my take was on that, and I think I've been vindicated. And I was saying in all of the debates I was doing around that time, my opponents are going to want to scream about January 6th and about Trump's character and this and that. But if the election comes down to substantive issues on the economy, the border, and foreign policy, Trump will win. Now, I didn't think ultimately it would. I thought there would be enough conspiracies and other things like that it would be enough to keep Trump out of the White House. But I knew that the American people didn't, despite the gaslighting from our media, they didn't think it was a good economy. They didn't think there was a good border job. They did not. So that's sort of the take I had. Now, you have to understand the context of the call-in show. I've explained this before. A call-in show is different. There are different hats you wear as a streamer, particularly that's doing politics. There's me presenting my show right now by myself. Neo Jackass, I'm giving shit in the chat. There is an inherent discrepancy in power imbalance right now for multiple reasons. One, it's my show, which means probably the majority of the audience is going to be more on my side. So that means if you're Neo Jackass, people will tend to disagree with you just by the nature of people know me and they don't know him, and they're tuning in specifically to see me. That's number one. Second is, Neo Jackass is typing. That's always way more difficult. I run my mouth a mile a minute. Someone typing, it's going to be very difficult. So that's a different dynamic than if we set up a one-on-one debate with a moderator. It's a completely different dynamic. A call-in show is a different dynamic as well. A call-in show, in my impression, the idea is this. Like if you had like a call-in show with Rush Limbaugh, how would that look? Rush is doing the show. He's doing 80% of the talking, but people call in and ask a question that's maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and then Rush might respond for like 5-6 minutes. That's different than a debate. A debate is, we're basically looking to have similar time and similar status. A caller calling into a show host, there's a discrepancy in status. Does everyone get that? Now, I only bring this up because at the outset of this, with Andrew, I don't know who Andrew Marcato is when he calls in. I have no idea who that is. He's just another caller. And the way the calls go is someone will say something for a minute and then I respond for like 5-6 minutes. You'll see that the dynamic changes once I understand that he wants this to basically be a debate. And so I sit there patiently and let him finish his point. But I'm certainly talking in large chunks for the majority of this. So he has a point there that I'm wordy. But other than that, let's see how this performance goes, shall we? I'll put the link to this. This is on Rumble right here. But I believe this video is up on YouTube as well. If you type the same name, it'll be the same title under YouTube. The call-in show on VP debate and other topics 10-24. So let's do it, shall we? Help if I turn the volume on. Can you hear me, sir?
I can. Sorry, I was listening to the stream on loud, so I had made sure that I was ready to go.
Thank you. Hey, so what's on your mind tonight?
Oh, no, just, I'm disagreeing. You had your VP debate call-in show.
Yeah.
Just listen to the last listener. How many rubles are you getting paid after that one?
No, you know me, man. The problem is here in rural Pennsylvania, it's hard to... Now, it's funny because I take this in good stride. He's probably just joking. But it is funny that so many people in that orbit seriously think that people like me get paid by Russia. So, whatever, though. But we'll see. Find an exchange market. So, I don't know. I just keep them as sort of souvenirs. The true story, I had a friend when I got married who travels a lot overseas. And so for a wedding gift, he gave me the check. Sign amount on that compensation from Russia. And Casimir is no Russian, I assure you. But you can see, it's a call-in show, so I'm talking more because that's usually how it goes. Anyways.
Interesting. I was just listening to the back and forth between the last two callers. It's pretty cool that you do this call-in show and you have this opportunity for people to talk to you. So what is your, I responded to your tweet. Obviously, you think J.D. Vance won the debate last night. I'm curious to find out why you have that take, and I guess we can start there.
Because he was better in 3 phases. He was better objectively with a matter of sort of the facts that were presented there and how it came off to the people. He wins on that, the substantive area of the debate. He wins optically. Walz comes off as nervous. Vance came across as very likable. Walz was even agreeing with him many times. He wasn't the weird demon that the media and the Democrats have tried to portray him as. And so he came across as far more confident, as even you see many Democrats acknowledging. But the third and most important reason is because these debates aren't about who objectively wins in a sort of, factual manner, who wins on the substance. It's about having a goal and trying to achieve it. The goal for Walz was to try to paint J.D. Vance as being the yes man to Donald Trump, who is a crazy authoritarian dictator that wants to take away women's right to choose and will end democracy as we know it. He didn't do a very good job of that. Even you see Democrats that are acknowledging that they think that he should have attacked him way more. I don't think he did a good job of that. The goal of J.D. Vance was to finally label a Harris-Walz administration or campaign that's basically been all but hiding from the American people, to label them as what they were, which is just an extension of the Biden administration. They're trying to run a campaign of change when they're the de facto incumbents. And I think J.D. Vance won that argument about as flawlessly as you can. Every single time that he said Harris is the current administration, she's been there, why didn't she do all of these things? There is zero pushback from Walz that she's not the policies of the Biden administration. And then Vance goes even further to say, if this election is about the record of Donald Trump for 4 years versus the record of Kamala Harris, how are you with the issues that most people care about? The economy, it was better under Trump. How are you with the border? It was better under Trump. How were you with foreign policy? The world was peaceful, now it's on fire. So I think in all three of those aspects, Vance clearly wins.
So it was optically inconfident, the fact that J.D. Vance attacked the campaign, and then the fact that he focused on Vice President Harris's responsibility for the situation.
I said that he won the substantive portion of the debate, the substantive things they were talking. He won the optic portion of the debate, and he won the strategic portion of the debate where he was able to achieve his goal where Walz was unable to.
Okay, so I disagree with that. So obviously J.D. Vance is well versed in debate. He's been doing it his entire political career. He went to Yale to become a lawyer. I even said this when I was reacting to it, that on presentation, J.D. Vance is going to sound better because he's more experienced with the debate structure itself. This is Tim Walz's very first national debate. He wasn't in there really to attack J.D. Vance. He was more in there to relay the policies and principles of Kamala Harris, and I actually think he did a very good job of that. I think Tim Walz stumbled in the early portion of the debate in the first question because it was a very loaded question. If me and you were asked that Middle Eastern question, me and you would likely stumble on this. I would admit to that.
I'm a pretty good debater.
You know what I mean? Exactly. So I know for a fact.
How could you not know that question was coming, given that there was an attack that day? That would have been the first question that I was prepared for. So I don't agree with the.
But I feel it though. But he wasn't also prepared for the same day news of China. So it showed for both instances that while the news was coming out for the day, he was prepared to relay Kamala Harris's policies and legislation.
Not to interrupt you, but I'm unaware. What same day news of China?
Oh, because it came out in Minnesota News, Tim Walz and being in China in 1989.
Oh, the Tiananmen Square. So, I'm sorry. I thought it was referenced. I was like, holy shit, China's connected to Iran or something with this.
No.
I misunderstood.
No. Yeah, I'm referring to the two instances where I'd say that Tim Walz was weak, but it's kind of connected in the same sense that the news came out right before the debate had started. So to process that, I think again Tim Walz stumbled a little bit at the start, but he brought it home at the very end of his argument. What he was trying to relay, that we're through coalition building and what the Biden administration has been able to do with allies, they're going to be able to directly address those situations in the Middle East. Also, one of your points of Kamala Harris is, I just fundamentally disagree with that, because Kamala Harris is the vice president. This is not her cabinet. It is Joe Biden's cabinet.
When did Walz say that?
Joe Biden's positions. Say again?
When did Walz say that?
No, I'm disagreeing with your second point.
What you're doing is, what you want to have a debate about whether or not the things I'm saying that I believe about Kamala Harris being connected to the Biden administration.
No, these are your debate points.
My point is, you apparently, this is what I thought you were doing. You were going to say that you thought that Walz won the debate, and now you're making arguments that Walz never made. Walz all but conceded that Kamala Harris was there and it was her administration. He all but conceded that. So for you saying,
when did he do that?
Every single time that J.D. Vance said Harris has been there, Harris is part of this administration, she was there. There was zero pushback.
I believe he didn't push back because it's not her administration.
So Andrew Marcato is the person. He's the person who was talking shit on me today, saying I'm a dog shit debater, that I had to mute him to win the debate because he was crushing me, et cetera, et cetera. So this debate was from October 2nd, 2024, the day after the Walz Vance debate. Now, at this point, I think it's all but confirmed. Even exit polling showed the only person in the immediate aftermath of the election that had a positive favorability rating was J.D. Vance. And he was underwater going into that debate. So it's all but the most partisan of people that admit that it was an absolute crushing victory for J.D. Vance. But this person's going to call in and say, no, that's not the case. Now, I gave 3 reasons why I thought Vance won. One was substantively on the issues. I thought that he came across as being smarter and being more substantive on the issues. The second was optically. And the third was when it came to strategically what they're trying to accomplish, I thought J.D. Vance's goal of trying to connect Kamala Harris to the Biden administration and saying the Biden administration policies were failures, he achieved that masterfully. And Walz was not effective at achieving what he wanted to do. Andrew Marcato starts off saying, of course, J.D. Vance wins optically. Okay. He claims, we don't get into this much in this debate, but on the substantive portion, that Tim Walz was much more detailed than J.D. Vance. He must have been watching a different debate than me because Tim Walz gave nothing but basically empty platitudes. Vance, although he didn't get deep into substance, was far more substantive than Walz. And then he's talking now about this idea of the connecting of Kamala Harris to the Biden campaign. And Tim Walz basically allowed J.D. Vance to answer. And I said that this is what Trump needed to do versus Kamala Harris, and it's certainly what Vance needed to do. The problem with Kamala Harris's campaign right up until Election Day was people were looking for a reason to vote for her. Who is she? What is she about? We had 2 different ideas of who Kamala Harris was. There was the Kamala Harris whose positions, if she were president, we heard in 2020, which were radical, ban fracking, Green New Deal type stuff, trans surgeries. We heard all that. And now she says, no, I've changed, but I haven't changed my principles. Okay. And then we have her being part of the Biden administration, where Biden said she was one of the last people in the room. He trusted her on all of these issues. Kamala Harris said that she was helping with all of these issues. She was told to be the border czar at one point, et cetera, et cetera. And so what the Trump team wanted to do was say, look, the record of the Biden administration is the record of Harris as well. And what Kamala's team needed to do was, no, this is how I'll be different. Now, the irony is, right after I have this debate with Andrew Marcato, where he's going to say Kamala Harris basically has nothing to do with the Biden administration. She has nothing to do with it. Those are Biden's policies, not her. She's just basically a figurehead. She, of course, would then have her disastrous interview on The View, where she admitted, yeah, I wouldn't have done anything different than Biden, which was the most disastrous interview of the whole election cycle. And so now what you're going to witness is, when we're talking about the debate proper, Tim Walz allows J.D. Vance to say every single question on every single topic. This is how bad the Harris is there. This is what the Harris-Biden. This is how they've been bad on foreign policy, how they've been bad on the border, how they've been bad on the economy. And never once does Tim Walz say, look, it's not Harris, that's Biden. Harris would do things differently. He doesn't say it once. But Andrew Marcato here is going to say, who, by the way, I gave every chance in the world to come on and debate me tonight. But if he wants to run his mouth on X and then be too much of a coward to come on and say that he crushed me in this debate and I'm a dog shit debater, I figure we'll do the next best thing and we'll look at the debate. Now you're going to see Andrew Marcato, instead of talking about what was said in the debate, he's just going to say, well, Tim Walz didn't even have to answer that because everybody knows Kamala Harris wasn't making any decisions in the Biden administration. That's what he's going to do. But he didn't push back. So you just say so your argument is everybody knows that's not true, so he doesn't even have to respond? That's ludicrous.
No, my argument is that Kamala Harris is the vice president of the United States. It's
Walz
not her
didn't make
cabinet.
that argument. Walz didn't make that argument. And
he didn't have to. He did not have to because it's common knowledge.
It shows that you're so unobjective in looking at this debate that you're literally putting your own bias in it and saying that Walz did well by not even. That is bias.
Not even
literally, if you didn't know whether or not Harris had any control over the campaign, and you just watched this debate, which we're talking about evaluating this debate, you're telling me that if you didn't know that, you would have, from Walz's performance, said, oh, of course Harris didn't have any decision-making in the Biden campaign. She was just vice president. That's the direction you would have came out watching the performance of Vance versus Walz?
So you're judging the debate performance based on the lowest informed voter,
no, it's not the lowest informed voter. One, I'm judging
that's the argument you're making.
That is not. It's not for two reasons. One, I'm judging the debate performance based on the debate performance and not the bias that you're bringing in from outside. And second, it's not the lowest informed voter because the Harris administration that is hidden, or the Harris campaign that's basically hidden from the American people and for adversarial press, etc. She is trying to run a campaign that says she takes credits for the good things that happened under the Biden administration. And you even have Biden out there saying she was the last person in the room. She had authority. She was great. She helped me with Afghanistan. She helped me with the border, saying all of this stuff. And then simultaneously saying, but I'm the candidate of change. Never once has she said, actually, I disagreed with the policies of Biden. I think this policy was a mistake. I would have done things this way. She's been more than happy for 3.5 years to have the impression that she was one of the last people in the room that was helping coming up with these decisions. She had Biden saying that. She had the media saying that. She was saying that. She's continued to run on that. And when asked about, like, well, how do we evaluate what you believe now versus the policy positions you had when you were running for office in 2020, she seems to be suggesting, well, I didn't do those things when I was in the Biden administration, thereby connecting to her again. So the idea you're saying that we all just have to say, oh, she has no connection to the Biden administration. She had no say in anything. She's vice president. Clearly, Joe Biden's the one who made these decisions. Oh, and never mind the fact that his brain's applesauce and we know that he wasn't actually doing anything. But we just have to know that Kamala Harris wasn't doing it. No, it's not the lowest common denominator. I would say to you, to articulate to me, so you would say that if hypothetically, so again, this discussion happened on October 2nd. Kamala Harris would, 6 days after this discussion I'm having with Andrew Marcato, would go on The View and be asked specifically this very question, right? Trying to make the point, because they know the reason that Kamala had to get out there was they knew the internal polling wasn't looking good for her, so she couldn't just hide in the basement, like was their strategy up until that point. And they knew that Vance crushed Walz in that debate. The Kamala team knew it. Andrew Marcato didn't know it, but the Kamala Harris team knew it, so they put her out there and did some softball interviews, like The View. So 6 days after this debate I'm having right here with Andrew Marcato, where he's saying, well, granted, Walz didn't have a good answer to what she would have done differently than Biden or when Vance kept hammering him on it, but we all know that she wasn't doing the decision-making. She, 6 days later, goes on The View and says, I can't think of anything I would have done differently than Biden. 6 days later. And I do have a propensity to get into these debates, and then within a week, something like a big thing coming out that proves my point. And so this was just another one of those. Pathetically. Do you think the economy is doing well right now?
Yeah, hold on. Let's bring it back. We're talking about Kamala Harris and her role in the government first before we move on to another point.
Well, it's important to that point because what I'm going to ask you, you could say yes or no. Do you think the economy is doing good now?
I'm going to finish the first topic that we're talking about. Okay, and then what
I'll do, that's fine. You could ignore the question, right, which is talking about the first topic that we're talking about because
you're trying to redirect the question.
I'm not trying to redirect it. So because you're refusing to answer, I'll answer for you. I bet if I went through your tweets, you'll say, actually, the Biden-Harris administration's done very good with the economy. We have lower inflation than most of the world. Job growth's been great, blah, blah, blah. Now, you'll give her credit for that. You'll say, yes, she was part of that administration.
I give Joe Biden. I give Joe Biden credit for that.
Okay, so Kamala Harris, so just to be clear, and then you could go off on the point you want. You're saying that all of the positive benefits that you think have occurred in the Biden administration, you give zero credit to Harris because she was just the henchman. She was just the sidekick. She didn't do anything. That's what you're saying?
She did her job. She's a vice president. Yeah,
okay,
like
so
if the worst would have happened to Joe Biden, like right.
She can't run on the record. So anyways, you'll say anytime she tries to run on and says, look how good me and Joe Biden did, you say, I don't give her credit for any of that. That's all Joe Biden. That's not her. That's your belief?
It's Joe Biden. It's Joe Biden's administration.
Okay, I
it's his
think you're
cabinet.
lying.
It's his
I think
positions.
that's not. I think
I
that's
mean,
not. The,
I mean, Joe
I think
Biden
that's
picked
not the
Kamala
argument
Harris
you
as
would make.
VP.
I think
No, it is.
you're
No,
lying.
it's 100%.
I think you're
Absolutely not.
So yeah, I just want to be clear. If I would go through your Twitter or through any videos that you've
Do
done,
what you
you've
have
never
to do.
said. You have never said since Harris has been the candidate. You have never said actually Harris is part of this administration. They're doing great in the economy. They're doing great with the border now. They're doing great. You've never made that argument. You're telling us.
Hey, can I let me do my thing here? Can I talk? All right?
Sure.
I'm gonna talk now. Awesome. So before Joe Biden dropped out, I was supporting Joe Biden. So I was actually advocating for the policies that he actually did get passed while he was president, and I actually credited some of his cabinet positions. So understanding that being Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris did a great job filling in for Joe Biden when he was campaigning and he was still running for president. She went in and spoke with NATO leadership on behalf of Ukraine and our
She's
interests.
just vice president. She doesn't get credit. Nope, she's just vice president. She don't get credit for any of that. Next.
That's not the argument.
Oh, so she gets credit for the things that you think were good, but when I say, oh well,
I'm judging
Harris,
her actions. I'm judging her direct actions. Like Kamala Harris went to that summit and spoke to NATO leaders,
and then
on behalf
Russia
of the
invaded
United
like
States.
3 days later.
And did what?
And then Russia invaded like 3 days later. That one?
No, what are you talking about?
Like when she went to Ukraine and she was going to sit there and like sort of. Like
no, what do you? Okay,
yes.
Whoa, what is that? What is that? No. You explain this. You explain this.
Shit! Whoa! Explain this. Like Kamala Harris went over to Ukraine and talked to them, and then like 3
When
days
was
later,
this?
Russia. Like 3 days before Russia invaded. Whoa! Yeah, that happened. Sorry, you weren't informed.
No, I am referring to Kamala Harris going to the summit this year, the Global Peace Summit. I'm not sure what you're talking about. You're talking about 3 days before the war?
Yes.
So you're talking about something that I'm not talking about. I'm talking about Kamala Harris's actions filling in for Joe Biden when he was campaigning for the election this year.
What you're talking about is the action she took when she directly talked to other world leaders. And you're talking specifically about when Joe Biden was campaigning. But it would be intuited then that you would say anytime she was taking actions when she was talking directly to world leaders that you would hold her responsible for that, correct? Or is there a reason that you give her credit when she was talking to world leaders, but only when Joe Biden was campaigning? When Joe Biden wasn't campaigning and she was directly talking to world leaders, you don't give her any credit.
Because Joe Biden was talking to the world leaders and Joe Biden's cabinet. And I have disagreements with positions inside of Joe Biden's cabinet and the State Department. I make that well known and I talk about it on my stream. But when Kamala Harris is making these decisions and she's representing the United States, she's done very, very well.
So just to be clear, what your position here is, when she goes over and talks to world leaders in 2022, that's not really her. That's just her as the cabinet of Joe Biden.
Okay,
let me finish.
So we're talking about 2022.
Let me finish. But once Joe Biden starts campaigning, now it's no longer that she's a member of the cabinet of Joe Biden. Now it's her making the decisions. So we could give her credit, but it only counts when Joe Biden's campaigning. Can you explain to me? So what you're telling me is the policies and the decisions that were made while Joe Biden was campaigning weren't the policies of Joe Biden. Those were the individuals that were operating because Joe Biden was out to lunch because he was running his campaign. Is that what you're telling us?
I'm not even sure where you're at with the argument you're making.
I'm making so you can see what's happening. He says, no. It was all Harris doesn't have anything to do with the Biden team, with the Biden administration. She's just she's just a VP. And I'm like, I highly suspect that's not the case. I highly suspect that you're out there saying, oh, when I think good things happen under the Biden-Harris administration, I think Harris should get credit for it. But when bad things happen, well, she's just the VP. It wasn't really her fault. No, I wouldn't do that. And then right after that, he says, but I do give her credit when she went and talked to world leaders while Biden was campaigning. And I was like, well, fine. If we're going to say she gets credit when she personally talked to world leaders, then couldn't we say, well, when she talked to world leaders in 2022, 3 days later, Russia invaded when she went and talked in Ukraine. So do we say, oh, maybe she didn't do so well then? He says, no, that doesn't count. Why doesn't that count? Well, because Biden wasn't campaigning then. It only counts when she talks to world leaders when Biden was campaigning. And then when I point out how that seems to be a distinction without any merit whatsoever, he's like, I don't understand what you're saying. We're all just supposed to, oh, I get it. It only counts when Harris talks to world leaders when Biden's campaigning. Then that's a credit to Harris. But if she talks to world leaders when Biden's not campaigning, well, she doesn't get credit for that. She's just the VP. It makes no sense. It's someone who's trying to make excuses.
Talking about-
Argument. If you're
so,
going
okay.
to say, if you're going to say we give Kamala Harris credit when she talks to world leaders and had a positive outcome, it seems that we
Where's
say,
the negative
okay,
one? What's the negative one?
Well,
So
like
is
for
the
example, a
insinuation-
few days before Russia invaded, she went
You're
over
going to
and was trying
blame.
to broker.
So you just say it. You're blaming Russia's invasion of Ukraine on Kamala Harris.
No,
and
I'm
that
saying it was
actions
clearly a
or-
failure when she was the point person that was designed to sit there and stop sort of an invasion occurring, and it happened.
That's not what
Then
her
why should
position
we-
was. Her position was to try to get us.
What was the name of the person I'm talking to? This is from October 2nd, 2024. It was a call-in show. This person's name is Andrew Marcato. Andrew continually goes on my X and talks about how he beat my ass the one time he debated me. I'm a dog shit debater. I had to mute him because I suck ass so bad at debate. I offered to have him come on and debate again this evening. He declined, so I figured we'd look at the one time we had a debate, and then you could judge for yourself if I'm dog shit and he beat my ass.
Her position was to prepare the United States to aid Ukraine in the upcoming Russian invasion that was planned, and that Russian bases
that's your
in
argument.
Belarus.
So 3 days
And
before she went there, she
Ukraine's
said
part of
Russia's
it.
the invasion's imminent. That's what she was saying. Can you show me evidence of that?
Of course.
Cool.
I mean, I can link it to you.
Sure, link.
I'll do it after the stream.
Spoiler alert, he never linked anything. Cool.
Is that the position you're taking though? Like, what is
I'm
this?
taking
So,
the
so,
position
so
I'm
is
taking. I'm taking
What
the
is your
position of
position
the
on Kamala
Harris.
Harris with this?
I'm taking the position of the Harris position, which is when things seemed rosy, she was running on, I was there, I'm making these decisions. I'm taking the Joe Biden position. She's the last person in the room. She was integral to these policies. I'm saying that those policies, when it comes to the economy, to the border, to foreign policies, were way worse than the Trump administration, and she should be held accountable. And J.D. Vance did a tremendous job of accomplishing that in this debate with no pushback of Walz. And you're trying to pretend that you're looking at this debate objectively, and the reason that you're saying that he should not get credit for that is because you just objectively know she was VP and didn't have any connection to all that stuff, except the things. If I wasn't scared, I'd call out Vegan Gaines to debate about communism, but he never will. I've already debated Vegan Game. He's welcome to come on and talk anytime he wants. Everyone told me that he was going to be like this huge asshole. I found my interaction with him to be quite pleasant. It was a terrible performance on his part. He wanted to talk to me about systemic racism in one of the situations where the police shot this black man, but it was black police officers, and he did not do well. It was moderated by the Crucible. That selectively you think we're good, and then you say actually VP Harris should get credit for that, but she shouldn't be punished for the policies that she was part of this administration because she's just VP and doesn't have connection.
Okay, you're very good at talking in like a twister, and you're very good at, because I was talking about
very good
Kamala
at
Harris
talking,
this
period.
year.
You can just
Yeah,
put period.
I can. That's clear. So Kamala Harris met with world leaders on 2 instances that you referenced in 2022, and then I referenced this year before the election, like that because of the Global Peace Summit, and those are 2 instances
That's
where
right.
Kamala Harris. Okay. 2 instances where Kamala Harris represented the United States for our interests to help Ukraine. Now, how are you equating that to Kamala Harris apparently like runs the country and it's her administration and all of the responsibilities that have fallen under the Joe Biden administration are somehow just all responsible for Kamala Harris? Like, how is that connected? What is the powers of the vice president? Can you tell me that?
Right. So first off, I could tell you that Joe Biden almost did nothing. His entire administration, his brain's
Okay,
applesauce.
that's
You asked the question. Would you like me to answer? So the idea, and we're basically being told now that we all but know that even though Joe Biden's not cognitively all there, it's okay because actually the show's ran by people behind the scenes anyways. So to that extent, there's no reason that we shouldn't look at the second in command and say that they're responsible as an integral part of that administration, particularly
that's
when they're
bias. That's bias.
You can say that's bias. That's fine. You asked me the question, and I'm going to answer.
Right.
Particularly
Okay.
then when we see that Harris herself is trying to connect herself to the Biden administration and has done so for 4 years, saying that, and Joe Biden has done the same, saying that she was integral and she was involved with all these policies, everything from economics to the border to foreign policy, as you're saying now. You're trying to differentiate and saying, no, we should ignore all of that because we've been lied to. And you know this, the American people don't buy the argument.
No,
that
I
people
disagree with that.
Let
I
me
disagree.
finish.
I'm not in your world.
The American people, you could say you're not in my world, but the polling's quite clear on this. The American people, when it comes to the issues that they think are the most important, such as the economy and the border, think that the Trump administration was better than the Harris-Biden administration. And so that's despite the fact that we've been gaslit for how secure the border was for 4 years and how great
You
the
trust
economy
polls?
was.
You trust polls? You
I
love polls?
I don't think that they're entirely
okay.
true, but I trust
Okay.
them directionally, and I think that it's the proof's also not just in the poll, but how you see the reaction. The fact that even you are trying to run. By the way, do you see that? And you'll see that he makes overtures in this debate. When I say the American people think the economy was better under Trump, the American people think the border was better under Trump. And he's like, oh, what? Really? I wonder why this guy thinks Trump won the election. What do you think? Because he seems to say, that's not true. You trust the polls? That the Americans think the economy was better under Trump? Okay, then why do you think Trump won? Because all of a sudden, a guy who never had net favorability, all of a sudden was just more likable than Kamala Harris? You think that's it? It's funny to see how this, I mean, can you imagine getting schooled this bad? And then the election going to Donald Trump, and still 2 months later, you're like, I crushed you. It's hilarious. Run from Harris being connected to the Biden administration shows that you and the Democrats know.
I'm literally not, though.
It shows that you and the Democrats know that if it's a referendum on how is the economy in the border under Trump versus how is the economy in the border under Harris-Biden, that Trump wins that. The Democrats know that. You know that. All of us know that.
Absolutely not, because when given the position or given the opportunity to support a border aid.
So he does not believe that. He does not believe if the election came down to where was the economy better, under Harris-Biden or under Trump? Where was the border better, under Harris-Biden or under Trump? If that's what the election's about, Trump will win. He says, I don't believe that. And now he's going to talk about the same talking point that we heard every Democrat make, including Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, the bipartisan border bill. And that's what the rest of this debate's going to be about.
Donald Trump literally called Republican senators and House to tell them not to vote for the bill as it was passing through. He did that from the outskirts for political gains. He has no interest in the U.S. southern border. So Kamala Harris and Joe Biden had a plan when that does get sent back through the House and the Senate. Kamala Harris already said that she would be willing to sign it. Both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris with the Republican-led House with a bill that was led by a Republican with Senator James Lankford. And Donald Trump said, nope. The country can handle it. All that fentanyl that's coming in, all those deaths in Americans and the Haitians and the dogs and the cats in Ohio and all that bullshit can handle it. And because I need to be the supreme commander of the United States of America, I need to be the one that issues these orders. So that just tells me that they don't really care at all. They're just going to use it for political talking points when ready and available. But I told you 2 instances that Kamala Harris.
I'll respond to that.
I'm not. Hold it.
You're welcome to have me as a guest on your show, and you can talk as much as you want. But I will respond to the point you make there. Very effective at regurgitating the NPC talking points that you've been given by the Democrats to repeat over and over. So here's the narrative that you're pushing. In 2020, we were told by Biden and Harris the border is secure. In 2021, we were told by Harris-Biden the border is secure. In 2022, we were told by Harris-Biden the border is secure. In 2023, we were told by Harris-Biden the border is secure. Now it's an election year, and so they have to pretend to care because their internal polling shows, whoops, even people that are traditionally Democrat think there's a huge problem at the border. So now they have to pretend to care. So they're like, well, what about this border bill? The border bill is a disaster. First off, the Republicans that are connected, it's not really about Republican versus Democrat. It's about establishment versus people that are seen as outside the establishment. That's fine. You could say that's cope. The Republicans clearly didn't care about the border before Donald Trump, as is evidenced by the fact that many Republican strategists told Trump in 2016 that such a focus on the border was a losing issue. The truth is they like the fact that they're, it's not that Trump won in 2016. You remember, it wasn't a losing issue. And most Americans, even in the debate, again, so I just told him, Republicans didn't really care about the border. In fact, in 2016, many Republican strategists were telling Trump when he won the primary, don't focus that much on the border. And Andrew says, talking about the border is a losing issue. But Trump won in 2016. Oh, by the way, he made the border his primary focus in 2024. And guess what? He won again. Another big fat L for Andrew Marcato here. This guy's name's Andrew Marcato. I'll repeat myself one more time, then I'm done with it. But I know people come in and out. This is guy on Andrew Marcato saying I'm a dog shit debater all the time on X. I debated him this one time. He called in a call-in show, which is what we're watching now. This is from October 2nd, 2024. I debated him. He wouldn't call in to debate today because he's a coward. So I figured we'd go back and look at the debate and see if he's right that I'm dog shit and he crushed me on this debate. So here you go. Another big fat L for Andrew saying talking about the border is a losing issue. Why'd Trump win again? Debate last night, most Americans think that they would support even things like mass deportations, let alone a stronger border wall or border security. So it is a winning issue to talk about border security. And so what happened is Republicans don't really want to talk about it. They pushed forth a bill that was terrible. This bill would have let let in like 5,000 illegals a day. It would have allowed exceptions from the very Biden administration, such as Mayorkas, that had showed a proclivity to allow these people in whatsoever. It funded the very NGOs that are facilitating these people coming in. It would have enshrined this in law, even if Trump won. So he would have had difficulty rescinding this law and having a congressional law passed to have an actual stronger border. It didn't provide any funding for a border wall that would come immediately. All of these things were terrible about this bill. And the idea that Trump should have supported this, or Republicans should have supported this, that would have allowed the Democrats to have these loopholes and enshrine this in law. So for the next 2 years, they could say, just like the moderators tried to spin, well, it's legal. It's legal that these people are coming in. Republicans voted for it. It's legal. So now you just have to accept these hundreds of thousands that come in a year because you voted for it, which is the exact argument they would have made, and said that they couldn't rescind it. I'm supposed to believe that somehow the Democrats that told us for 4 years that the border was secure and did nothing until it was an election year, and then wanted a bill that funded the very NGOs that allowed this illegal immigration and facilitate it, that would have enshrined this in the law. Oh, but they really care about the border. Bullshit. Why didn't they talk about the border? Why did they say that it was secure in 2021, 2022, 2023? When they had control of the House and the Senate and the presidency, why didn't they solve the border crisis? If it was so important to them, why instead were they rescinding Trump's executive orders, which led to the worst border crisis in modern history, and telling us all the while, actually, the border's secure? Why did they do that if they really care about the border?
Yeah.
Now, I made two overarching points there. We're talking specifically about why Americans trust Trump on the border more than Harris. He says that's not true because Trump said not to pass the bipartisan border bill, right? So I do two things. One, I play defense. I say, here's why the border bill sucked. I gave 5 reasons. I said it sucked because it funds NGOs. It sucks because it doesn't finance a border wall initially. I said it sucks because it allows 5,000 a day in. It sucks because it allows loopholes for Mayorkas and other people to allow people to come in even that you would think wouldn't be allowed. And the 5th reason I said was because once it's enshrined in law, it'll be hard for Trump to rescind it. And what you'll see is just like everyone said about the Haitians in Ohio and everything, what did they say all the time? They said, but they're legal. They're not illegals. They're legally here. It would have been the same thing. The 5,000 a day that were coming in, you'd have seen Democrats say, but Republicans voted for it. Those aren't illegals. They're legal. That's what they would have said. So those are the 5 reasons. So that's my defense. 5 reasons why that bill sucked. And then my offense is, if we're comparing who's better on the border, Trump or Harris Biden and the Democrats, well, Harris Biden and the Democrats made the border a disaster. They rescinded executive orders, and for 3 years they told us that the border was secure and did nothing, even when they controlled the House and Senate. Now, how do you think he's going to respond? Do you think he's going to say, well, let's go through your 5 points on that disastrous border bill? And actually, here's what Harris and Biden were doing in 2021 and 2022 to secure the border. You think that's what he's going to do? Put a 1 in chat if you think that's what's going to happen. Or do you think he's just going to regurgitate the exact same talking point over and over? Put a 2 if you predict that's what's going to happen. Let's find out what his strategy is here.
Yeah. Because the United States is not a dictatorship, and things need to be done through the Congress.
They controlled Congress and the Senate.
Who controlled the Congress and the
Democrats.
Senate? We control the House.
Didn't you in 2020? Am I wrong about this?
Who was president?
Biden, 2021, right? That election, the 2020 election.
The House went to, and Biden continued the border wall. Biden continued funding the border wall. He continued border wall in Arizona and Texas. Have you been to the border wall?
No, I haven't. Have you?
Okay, yeah, I have.
Wow.
I've seen it on my YouTube channel.
So he continued. How many miles of the border wall was built by Biden Harris?
I don't have that number
You've
on
been
me right
there.
now.
You've been there. Give me a ballpark figure.
I don't have the exact. You're looking it up, so you tell me.
I'm not looking it up. I'm asking you. You're the one who's speaking as an expert. You've been there. You said that Biden built the border wall. I'm asking you, how much?
I'm saying Biden continued Trump's border wall. He continued it in October of 2021 into November, and he actually still continued.
So what occurred was, as you know, as was again referenced in the debate last night, which Vance could have done a slightly better job on this, we were told by Democrats that border walls were ineffective and racist. And so when Trump wanted to spend some money on creating a border wall to have a secure border, they had one of the longest government shutdowns in history to stop him from doing it. Now,
hey, if border walls worked, if border walls truly worked, why was immigration moving?
Notice how he keeps interrupting with non sequiturs, right? So we're talking, I had 2 attacks. I said Democrats didn't do anything. When they were there for 3 years, they said it was a cure, and this bipartisan border bill narrative that they're spinning is bullshit. Here's 5 reasons why. And now notice he's just like, well, they didn't have the House and the Senate. That's not true, as we'll get to in a minute. Well, Biden actually did build the border wall. Have you been to the border? Well, do border walls work? You see, it's all getting away from the central thesis of who do we trust more on the border?
Up, or why were border crossings going up before Donald Trump even left office? Why, when he showed his famous graph in his speech, and also that MAGA Republicans showed in the Congress showing immigration numbers rising, why was it going up while Donald Trump was president? Like, why didn't the borders? Why did Mexico not pay for the border? Why is the border wall not finished under Trump when he had control of it?
All right, bunch of interesting questions. One, the reason that the border wall wasn't finished under Trump was he tried to have a bill that Democrats had the largest government shutdown because they said that walls were racist, walls that they're now advocating for. So you were Kamala Harris haven't answered for why the wall under Donald Trump was racist, but now that they want a wall that it's not racist. You haven't answered why, if it was ineffective when Donald Trump wanted it, why now Kamala Harris is supporting it. Second, he's not a dictator, so he wasn't able to just say, screw it, I'm going to build a wall on my own. Because the Democrats had a shutdown, he was unable to get accomplished everything he wanted. Third, it is true that there was times that because his numbers of illegal immigration and border crossings were so low at one point, it did naturally go up at some points. Ben, there were many reasons why that could have occurred, but it wasn't because walls don't work. It was because there was illegal immigration coming that was facilitated by organizations that our establishment and the Democrats want, like NGOs.
That's just nonsense.
You don't think NGOs are facilitating the illegal crime?
No.
That's not true.
No.
The evidence shows that's quite literally what's going on. Nonetheless, the idea that we have to say because there are ebbs and flows under a 4-year period, and sometimes it went up, like in 2019. By the way, it went down in 2020 then, correct?
No, it was on the rise while Donald Trump was.
So, okay, here's another claim. So you already said it wasn't true that Democrats, after the 2020 election, controlled the House and the Senate and the presidency. Now he makes another misstatement, we'll say to be generous. He says, when Trump was leaving office in 2020, border crossings were going up. I said, yes, they did go up a little in 2019, but then they went back down in 2020. He says, no, that's not true. Okay. The argument is when he left in 2020, that was the highest point that had been under the Trump administration.
Is that what I said?
You said it was going up when he went out.
It was already starting to, like, if you read a graph, you know how graphs work?
I do.
Okay, so it was already starting to trend upward while Donald Trump was still president. Like, it was already increasing to the levels where it's getting to. Like, it was already on an upward trajectory while Donald Trump was still in office. And he points to the point on the graph after he was out of office as if it's, or he pointed to a point on the graph while he was still in office and tried to sell it as if this is happening while he was out of office and president, and it's just not the case. But the problem at the border is not going to be fixed with a wall. It's not going to be fixed with security. It's not going to be fixed with the National Guard or whatever, even though the National Guard are down there. And whenever it's raining, by the way, they don't care. Like, there's no crossings when it's raining.
Okay, so just to illustrate the point that you're trying to make. So here's the border crossings under Donald Trump. 2016, 331,000. 2017 drops to 311,000. 2018 drops to 304,000. 2019 goes up to 396,000. 2020, at the end of the year, we had around 350,000, which was precipitously lower than it was in 2019. So the argument is that it went like this, was trending down, then went up in 2019, and as I said, then went back down in 2020. Those numbers were exacerbated hugely under Biden. The argument is that you're trying, and we know that there was, because they couldn't get the policies that he wanted passed through Congress, because Democrats led the largest shutdown, because they wanted these open borders, as they all tantamountly admitted. They did. So notice how, just quickly, we move around. And this is something like, this is a tactic that Vosh uses a lot, that I've talked about this. When Vosh debates, he'll just say something definitively. Actually, don't you know how graphs work? The graph shows that the numbers were going up when he left office. So you're telling me in 2020 they were going up? Don't you know how graphs work? Okay, let's look at the data. I look at the data. Actually, it shows, just like I said, it did go up somewhat in 2019, but then it went down again in 2020, and the numbers spiked way higher under Biden. And then once we're proven that I'm right, turn up my mic volume. It is what it is for tonight. Is anyone else having trouble hearing me? I think that my mic volume's probably okay. I don't know. Am I using the right mic? It might be the question here. Yeah. All right. Sorry. I always have this happen. I always have one person that says there's audio issues. And then I spend so much time trying to fix the audio issues, and everyone else is like, I'm not experiencing audio issues. Okay, so let me see if I can fix this. Check. Something's... That's not doing it. Check. How about we do this? We'll turn down the volume there. All right. Anyways, so... Yeah, we're going to keep going. I forget where my place is. On that debate stage in 2020, all of them said it shouldn't be a criminal offense for people to come. They all said that they wanted to give benefits to these people. All of them said it's a humanitarian crisis. None of them said of any measures that they would put to stop these people that are coming as long as they claimed asylum. So it was tantamount to open borders. They signaled to the rest of the world that if you come here, we will give you all of these benefits. We'll allow you in. And predictably, that's exactly what happened. On top of that, there were 90-something executive orders that Joe Biden bragged about, which Kamala Harris was there and bragged about as well, almost immediately rescinding, which predictably led to a border crisis, which we could see occurring in real time. They told us over and over there wasn't a border crisis, that the border was secure. They told us that in 2021. They told us that in 2022. They told us that in 2023. And then when they saw that it was an election year issue, they said, oh, now we have to try to keep our phony baloney jobs and pretend that we care about this issue. That's exactly what occurred. It is undeniable.
I think it's a projection. I think it's an absolute projection. Yeah,
what were they doing in 2022 when they had control of the House and the Senate?
What was the Republicans doing when they had bipartisan support and they could have fixed the issue?
They didn't. I already explained to you how the bill was
that
actually
bill was
bad.
an authoritarian. No, what that bill was such an authoritarian bad. You're the projection of the bill that you're talking about with the Kamala Harris supporter that James Lankford led is a good bill. The one you're talking about with Donald Trump and the House Republicans, HR2 is dog shit. It's an abs. I am disputing it right now. If you let me speak,
okay.
I will dispute it.
It was good. That's what you said so far. It was good.
I'm actively disputing what you just said right now.
Okay, so remember, I gave 5 reasons that this bipartisan bill was bad. He's never even mentioned why it was good. He never responded to any of my 5 reasons. He says, if you leave me talk, I'll tell you why you're wrong. Okay, let's hear what he says.
Now, okay.
It was good.
Anyways, HR2 is not a good bill. It was an authoritarian bill that was not going to actually address the systemic problems at the U.S. southern border with asylum claims because they are backlogging the system. Okay, this would have added judges. This would have added more border agents. This would have added more resources. Would have added more security measures at the U.S. southern border to identify any threats that were crossing the southern border into the United States. And Donald Trump and the Republicans said, nope. With all these measures and a bipartisan support that Republicans still could have claimed. They could have claimed a victory, a strategic victory under a Democrat president. Everything you're claiming about Democrats back in when Trump was president. You have Biden as the president, and he's a Democrat, and he would have signed a Republican-led legislature for the U.S. southern border, and Donald Trump decided, nope, because I need to win an election, and this is the only issue that I have. But you're not actually going to address any of the concerns. You just want to have fear and carnage, send a HIMARS system down there, send an M1 Abrams systems down there. You know what? I was in a debate with another MAGA, and he said we need to have a battalion of Marines down there. If you decided I'm going to ask a question. How many battalions of Marines would it take to secure the U.S. southern border? What do you think?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Nope.
That's a better answer than the last one I got.
Cool.
I'd take that one.
So no. Now, he said, I'm going to explain to you why the bill was good. Okay, let's hear it. And he says, well, HR2, which is the bill Republicans pushed, he's like, that's authoritarian. And they want to send M1 tanks and HIMARS down there and a battalion of Marines. I didn't say shit all about any of that. And Biden wanted to sign a Republican bill, and that's good. How does that address any of the points I made about the bill? At all. He literally is just regurgitating talking points. But it was bipartisan, so it must be good. I talk specifics on the bill, specific objections I have. It's not like he said, well, here's the parts of the bill that were good, and here's why you're wrong about the parts that were bad. Nor does he explain. Remember, I had 2 arguments. I said, on your argument that this bill was good, here's 5 reasons I think it was bad. So that's playing defense on his claim. And here's my offense, is why we shouldn't trust Democrats. They didn't do anything in 2021, 2022, 2023. In fact, they made it worse and kept saying the border was secure. Why didn't they do anything? And he hasn't given one reason. He hasn't said anything. He just goes up and he's like, well, you know, it's bipartisan and Trump wants to make it a crisis. And there is a school of people that think that's debate. They think if I just keep regurgitating the exact same talking point and say this answers you, and there's no clash whatsoever, it's like he has as a debate coach and a debater in college, I saw this all the time. When you saw low-level debaters, this is what would happen. They would have a pre-written speech before the round, and they'd read that speech, which is fine for your first speech, and then the other team would read a pre-written speech, and then what's supposed to happen is you engage with those speeches. But debaters that weren't that skilled, but they would just read another pre-written speech. And then the other side would be like, but you didn't answer all the objections we made. And here's more. And then they would just read another pre-written speech. That's not debate. That's just someone who's used to staying in their bubble where all of the media they consume agrees with them, and they're not used to engaging in someone and pushing back and forth. Now, notice what he did here was he completely ignored everything I said. He said,
no, I didn't.
Was good. Yes, this is what he did. So this is
I directly talked about HR2, which was the Republican bill.
So what he did was he talked about HR2 and just said it was authoritarianism. HR2 was a bill that actually had teeth that would have not allowed thousands of people in a day that came here. That's why he doesn't like.
Wrong.
So it would have.
Wrong.
It would have.
Wrong.
It would have. Go ahead.
You think that bill would have stopped people from crossing the border?
You see, so I said HR2 bill didn't say it allowed thousands of people. Wrong. And then he's going to say, do you think it would have stopped people? Well, one bill said, before we do anything, 5,000 people a day are allowed to come in. The other bill said, no, that's not the case. So I'm saying the bill that said, no, we're not going to allow 5,000 people a day had more teeth. He interrupts me. Wrong. I think it didn't enshrine that legally we had to accept in 5,000 something a day before it went into effect, correct?
That's not... It's still a humanitarian issue. People are crossing for asylum. Like, it's still going to be a problem.
And now it comes.
Like, sorry, I'm not going to take the position. Sorry, Rob. Sorry, Rob. I'm not going to take the position of. I'm not going to take the position of the military firing away at immigrants crossing the border. I'm just not going to take the.
No one said the military should fire.
Okay, then going back to the debate. Going back to the debate from last night. Going back to the debate from last night.
So when JD Vance, if I come as a guest on your show, you can filibuster to your heart's content.
I'm going to empower the U.S. southern border. What does that mean?
We'll just okay.
When JD Vance says I'm going to empower the agents of the U.S.
Last chance. Now, do you see? I gave him his chance to speak pretty uninterrupted there. Then as soon as I start, wrong, then I address what he's saying. Then he just talks over me. This is the start of when he ends up starting. I keep asking him, like, I'm not going to let you filibuster. If you want to filibuster in your own show, that's fine. I'm not going to let you come on my show and filibuster. I'm going to talk. What he did was exactly, Mr. White gets it. He changed his whole position. And now it's humanitarian. We have to let people in. So his initial position was, you think that bill would have prevented people from coming in? Initially, he says the Lankford bill, the bipartisan bill that he likes, would have solved the immigration crisis. It wouldn't have allowed all these people in. Then when I say, well, the Republican bill, the HR2 bill, the Republican bill out of the House was actually better. It actually had teeth. It didn't enshrine in the law that we allowed 5,000 people a day legally to come before it kicked in. And he says, but that would be bad. It would be a humanitarian crisis. You see? And when I start to point that out, now he's going to filibuster. I'll leave you sort of allow me to address this, or you can keep trying to talk over me. It's your choice. Right now, notice what he did. Now he gives the game away here. Actually, it's a humanitarian crisis. We do have to leave these people in. You see, and that's exactly what this bill was that they were pushing for.
That's not what I said.
That is what you said.
No, it's not.
I'm just going to talk. You can continue to say it's not.
I know you're good at it. You're very good at doing it.
I know you're not very good, ironically, but people can judge for themselves what you said. So,
it's your show, of course, because you're just going to talk over me and you're just going to claim it's your show.
I mean, that's what you're doing right now. You're trying to talk over me. So, nonetheless, what else?
Right. You can
do
it
when it comes to H2, when we talk about the bill H2 or the HR2 bill, you can see when it actually had more teeth. He's like, but I don't like that. I don't like the teeth. It's a humanitarian crisis. We have to leave certain people in. That's what the bill was doing that was pushed. It had all of these loopholes. Notice he didn't address any of them. He didn't address the fact that it let in 5,000 something people a day. He didn't address the fact that it had loopholes that people like my Orcas that clearly wasn't enforcing the border. As the Border Patrol Union had said, it gave that they blamed specifically Biden, right, and say that he's been an abysmal failure and it basically allowed these failures to occur. He doesn't address any of that. He doesn't address the funding to the NGOs. He doesn't address the fact that this would have enshrined it in law, which meant if Republicans took over, they would have difficulty rescinding it. He doesn't address any of that. Instead, he just goes back to talking the same old talking points. He says it would have sent a bunch of money for judges and things like that. Well, the problem's not money. The problem is that these Border Patrol agents, of course, they're going to say, sure, we'll take more money, and maybe they could use more money. Please.
Right.
But it's also the fact that they have an administration currently that's
Is this a debate? Are you just talking?
I'm going to talk to my heart's content on my show. I gave you a large chunk of time to talk there. I don't know. Is it a debate? You called in and disagreed with me, right? I'm disagreeing with your position right now. So it's taking a format of sort of a debate because you're issuing a position that I'm rebutting. Right? That's what I'm doing. So you could say, are we calling this a debate? I would say asking that question seems to suggest that you're trying to derail the point I'm making because already I've said it twice and you've not addressed it. Now, talking specifically then about this bill, he didn't address any of those things that I said that this bill did because all he's capable of doing is repeating the talking points that he's heard. But it was bipartisan, Lankford said, right, and it was still a terrible bill. It would have been enshrined in law.
Those are your opinions. Those are your opinions.
You could see from the way that he talks that actually he, just like the Democrats, want to allow these people. We have to be humanitarian. We have to allow them in, right? And so that's sort of the rhetoric that they're going with anyways. Notice that he didn't address once. He hasn't even attempted to address.
Am I like your showpiece? Or like, what are you doing? I'm right here. Like, I'm talking. Like, I can talk and present my own opinions. I'm not a showpiece. Fine. You can when you get a chance to talk. I'm not like your trophy.
You can. That's fine. Certainly, I don't need you as a trophy. You could have the chance to address.
But that's how you present me.
You could have the chance, and I'll be sure to interrupt you as commonly as you're interrupting me.
I'm ready for it.
Now, notice how he hasn't addressed whatsoever. Would you prefer if I say this? Notice how you haven't addressed whatsoever the fact that the Biden administration told us the border was secure in 2021, 2022, 2023, that they controlled the House and the Senate through 2021 and 2022, and they didn't do anything to secure the border. In fact, they seemed pretty pleased in telling us that everything was going swimmingly, that these people were coming in, flooding in. Notice he hasn't addressed that. What he wants you to believe is that they were diligently working on securing the border and thought it was a problem when we saw these record numbers coming in 2021, 2022, 2023. They were diligently working on it, even though they were telling us and virtue signaling to all of us, actually the border's secure, actually things are going quite well. And then it just so happened in 2024, they finally came to you know what, here's this bill that we support. He hasn't answered the fact that we saw that the numbers...
Because I fundamentally disagree with you. I fundamentally disagree with you. I fundamentally disagree with you on this.
Also, I want to make a point here. I know I could be wordy and drag on. That's certainly true. Subconsciously, when people interrupt me over and over like that, it just makes me want to talk longer. If you're not, and it's very difficult when you're on a point and you get interrupted. You just saw it earlier when someone mentioned audio issues. When people interrupt, even that's just someone saying something in chat. That's no big deal. But when people interrupt you, it oftentimes causes a difficulty in keeping your train of thought. And so when someone's losing a debate, they'll do this all the time. No, it's not. No, you're a liar. Nope, that's wrong. That's not it. That's not what I'm saying at all. Nope, that's not it. They'll just keep doing that shit. And so one of the tools I use back, if you're going to do that, then I'm going to make my point even more long-winded. So if you just let me talk, I'll get my point out in a minute or two. Then you'll have a minute or two to respond, and we can politely go back and forth that way. But if you're going to keep interrupting me, then I'm just going to drag on until I'm going to respond to what you're interrupting, and then I'm going to get my initial point out.
Like you have your position and I have a different position, and you're trying to sell your MAGA audience your take, but I'm here trying to.
Okay, we'll just mute you here for a second, so then we'll give you a chance to speak when I'm done. Notice how he hasn't addressed that. Now, what you can't lie about is the data. You can't. We see that one of the first things that Biden did when he came in office was bragged about the 90-something executive orders of Trump's that he rescinded, and we see that immediately led to a gratuitous spike in the amount of illegals that were coming. It's because they wanted them to come. They bragged about it. They thought it was a PR victory to say, oh, we're treating them more humanely. We got rid of these. And predictably, the data doesn't lie. He has no answers for any of that. He's going to the old Democratic talking point. Oh, trust us. We always cared about the border. But mean old Trump didn't like this border bill, so all of the blame falls on him. Okay, you can respond now.
So you're authoritarian banhammer for muting me there.
Are you banned?
So number one, we talk about I don't know, whatever, muted. So you talk about Democrat.
Is this a debate? Is this a debate?
This is fun. So
is it a debate? Is it a debate?
Yeah, it's a debate. So anyways, so U.S.
Am I your trophy?
Am I your
trophy? Is that what this is? I'm your trophy.
I wasn't going to actually address.
Am I your trophy? Am I your trophy? Is that what it is? Am I your trophy? Am I your trophy? And like that's all this is. Is this a debate? Is this a debate? Go ahead. I'll leave you talk. Just making a point there. Sucks when someone interrupts with inane bullshit like that. But now notice from here on out, I just leave him talk as long as he wants and waits until he ends his point. Then I'll respond. He can't do the same courtesy. In fact, he'll ask to be muted because he can't control himself later. And then, of course, when he goes to X today, he says, Rob muted me because he couldn't handle how well I was winning the debate. That's why he muted me. Not because you continually interrupted and talked over me with inane bullshit.
Senator James Lankford. It was a very, very good bill, and it was worked on by both sides, which is very important to do in a bipartisan Congress. And you try to pass bills for the American people that is bipartisan. And when given the opportunity to pass something that both parties supported and people from both sides supported, the Republican Party and Donald Trump said, nope, that's good. We don't need any of that. It is a humanitarian issue, regardless of whatever the cope you're talking about. I know you really just want to like load up a 249 and just a belt fed and just fire away at the immigrants down there, but that's just not going to solve the issue. And it's just,
you see, they're always saying, oh, you want to shoot people. Where did I ever say that? Just bullshit straw men that they throw out. And notice now, several times I've gone through my problems with this bill. Has he responded to one of the problems I've talked about? To one of them? He just keeps saying, it is a good bill. It was bipartisan. That's it. That's all he said. He just literally repeats. He changes some words around the order of the words, but literally just repeats himself. And it's like, this is a debate. I'm like, this is specifically what's bad about this bill. He goes, it's good. It's bipartisan. And I'm like, but here are the specific problems I have with it. And he's like, yes, but what you fail to understand is the goodness and the bipartisanship. And I'm like, but you're not addressing the specific problems. Yes, I've addressed them. Have you not heard me say it is goodness? Also, it was bipartisan. And I'm like, but there are specific problems. You're not even referencing them. Oh, but I did reference them when I talked about it being good and it's bipartisan. It's just mine. And this dude still talks about this debate like he kicked my ass.
It's not going to solve the border crisis. The number one source of immigrants coming into the United States is going to be from when they fly in and stay beyond their allowed visa. That is actually the number one immigration stay inside of the United States. It's not even the U.S. southern border crossings. I fundamentally disagree that the U.S. southern border crossings are a very key, strong issue with the United States. I feel like that is a very focused MAGA Republican talking point. And even when addressing the issues of the asylum and the backlogged asylum that does need to be fixed. I agree with you. I agree that there is issues that need to be handled down there. But I guess when it comes to actually taking care of the problem and legislating and bringing it to the Congress to do so, you would rather fall onto talking points and narratives and then push it back into propaganda and not even handle the problem when given, or not even handle the issue when presented. And I think Tim Walz did a good job of that in the debate yesterday, talking about demonizing the problem instead of solving it. And that is a very common MAGA Republican tactic when dealing with any type of issue or anything in the news space these days. You're just going to demonize it, complain about it, and then not actually want to figure it out or solve it. You're just going to make it up, just like JD Vance says, just going to make up some stories, and hopefully that's what people will go with. So, I mean, you've done a lot of rambling and a lot of Republican talking points, and I was just going to share that my background isn't Democrat. Like, I am not a Democrat. I come from MAGA. I voted for Trump in 2016. I volunteered for John McCain's campaign in 2008. I mail-in voted for Mitt Romney when I was deployed overseas in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. So I've been very much a Republican like my whole life up until 2020 when I decided to vote Green Party, because I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go for both of these parties. Like, I'm going to vote for someone else now. So I went Green Party. But then now, because of how cooked the right wing is and how cooked MAGA is and how cooked libertarians are, simping for Vladimir Putin and wanting to be Putin fluffers, there's just no chance for me to go for any other political party other than the Democratic Party, who at least want to keep the fundamental or the foundations of the United States together by upholding the Constitution, which MAGA and the Republicans have absolutely zero interest in doing.
So before I get to responding to him here, notice, did he ever once address any of my criticisms with the bill? He just asserts, it's a good bill, it's bipartisan, and you don't want to fix the border if you were against this bill. He never once addresses, why didn't the Democrats do anything in 2021, 2022, 2023? When the situation was reaching crisis numbers, why did they say the border was secure? Why didn't they do anything? They controlled the House and Senate in 2021 and 2022. Why didn't they do anything? He doesn't address it. Instead, he says, all you do is talking points. This was a good bill. It was bipartisan. You want to shoot immigrants. You spread Vladimir Putin's talking points. Oh, and here's a story about how actually I'm not a Democrat. I used to vote for MAGA and blah, blah, blah. Rorith for Super Chat for $10. Thanks so much. He said, did you see the story about how Ukraine was sending drones and other forms of help to aid the rebels in Syria to overthrow Assad? Yeah, we talked about that. Check out my show last night with potentially criminal Sean. We talked about that. Yeah, absolutely. So he doesn't address anything at all. He just, oh, you're spreading Putin's talking points and you want to kill immigrants. Also notice how I sat there and politely let him, even though this was non-responsive to anything I said, I sat there quietly and let him finish his point without saying, no, you're wrong, liar, wrong, no, that's not true. Notice that? Notice how that works? Let's see if he shares me the same courtesy. So you notice that there's a lot of sophistry here. When we're talking about the specifics of the bill that he wanted to talk about, notice how he hasn't addressed any of the specifics again. He just says these buzzwords. It was bipartisan. Oh, by the way, I'm not
bipartisan
a Democrat.
Is a buzzword? Hold on. Bipartisan is a buzzword?
See? He can't help himself. Now, this is a victory for him. This is part of the strategy. When you're getting blown out, what you do is you just repeat talking points, and then as soon as the other person starts talking, continually interrupt them, hoping that they lose their train of thought. And then if it gets to the point where the person's like, that's it, I'm just going to mute you so I can get my point out, then you declare victory. I win, everyone, because he muted me. How long did that take? I sat there that whole time and let him finish his point. Oh, well, I wasn't always, and you're spreading Putin's talking points, and I served overseas, and I was a Republican, and then now I can't vote Republican, and I voted Green Party, but the Democrats the only party. None of it had anything to do with the discussion we're having, at all. But I sat there quietly. Now watch how long I get to talk before he interrupts me.
Holding the Constitution, which MAGA and the Republicans have absolutely zero interest in doing.
So you notice that there's a lot of sophistry here. When we're talking about the specifics of the bill that he wanted to talk about, notice how he hasn't addressed any of the specifics again. He just says these buzzwords. It was bipartisan. Oh, by the way, I'm not
bipartisan
a Democrat.
Is a buzzword?
I'm not 10 seconds. I got 10 seconds before he... Bipartisan. Yes, it's a buzzword. You're literally just saying the word bipartisan to get out of having to address any of the specifics of the bill.
Bipartisan is a buzzword?
I'll finish my point. It was bipartisan. So don't all the specific objections you made to it. No, it was bipartisan. It's all good. When it comes to, oh, I'm not really a Democrat. I just have no choice because of MAGA. None of this addresses the point that he wanted to make specifically about the border. Notice he, again, completely failed to address for about the fourth time the fact that the Biden-Harris administration rescinded all of these executive orders.
I did address it. You're lying. You were lying. You were lying. You were lying to your audience right now. I did address it.
How'd you address it? Go ahead. You have 10 seconds to tell me how you addressed it.
Okay, I fundamentally disagree with your entire positioning on the border. I do not view it as an issue within the United States as an invasion. I do not view it as an issue in the way that you.
That's not addressing. So he doesn't. So I'm like, he's not addressing the specific points I'm making about the border bill. That's a lie. He says that's a lie. I did address it. I said, okay, how did you address it? Go ahead. He says, I disagree with your framing that it's an invasion. What does that have anything to do with the 4 or 5 points I made why this border bill is no good? No, he didn't read the bill, Conceptual Milo. That's the point. He has no idea what's in the bill. Nothing. He came on and was like, obviously this bill's the greatest thing, and Trump didn't like it, so that proves that he's no good on the border. And it's like, well, here's specific things in the bill that were bad. And he has no clue. He probably never heard the specific objections that I brought up to the bill. He just heard the Democrat talking points. He heard Tim Walz talking points. He heard Kamala Harris talking points. He heard Jake Tapper and CNN's talking points, and he just ran with it. That's what happened. That's why he's so flat on what that border bill said. He just says, well, it's bipartisan. It was good. I did address your criticisms. Okay, what are my criticisms? How did you address my individual criticisms on this bill? Well, I disagree that the border's a crisis.
Directly addressing it.
That is not addressing. That's not addressing him saying I don't think it's a big problem.
That is directly addressing.
That is not addressing it. Him saying I don't think it's a problem isn't the same as me saying the Biden team told us that there wasn't a crisis at the border. They said it was good. Now they're saying it is a crisis at the border. So why didn't they talk about it in 2021, 2022, 2023 when we saw these record numbers? What were the policies that they were advocating to solve it when they had both the House and the Senate? What did they do? They did nothing. They waited until it was an election.
They never had the House and the Senate. You're making that up.
Now he's claiming Democrats never controlled the House and the Senate. That's what he just said.
Again,
that's your claim?
So the Democrats had the House and the Senate? We've had all three? All three?
1 second. Yeah, you could be right. Let me check.
I know I'm right.
Now, at this point, I'm 99% sure that he's wrong. But I'm going to look it up. So listen, he knows
So
it.
the Democrats had the House and the Senate. We've had all three.
Super chat from Ultra Void, $5. Thanks so much. He says, sounds like you didn't give him enough time. LOL, you just have to be nicer. I hear you.
All three?
1 second. Yeah, you could be right. Let me check.
I know I'm right. It's been a
I know I'm right.
Republican House the entire time. I know I'm right.
It's been a Republican House the entire time of Biden's presidency. Okay.
They're the ones fighting back at it this entire time. Under Trump, they had a Democrat Senate, and they had a Democrat House and a Republican Senate. Now it's inverted.
Let's see. Oh shit. 1 second. Let's find the exact numbers.
So, anyways,
No, it's fine. We're gonna. Pentuple, thanks for the raid, man. I appreciate it. We're looking at this guy, Andrew Marcato, who is a YouTube streamer, called into my show on October 2nd, 2024, to argue that Tim Walz beat J.D. Vance in the VP debate. So this was the day after the VP debate. Now, the reason I'm reviewing this again today is it's interesting to go back to these debates from a couple months ago when people were so certain that they were right on issues and then they were wrong. But also because this person is always talking shit on me and X about how he crushed me in this debate and how I had to mute him because he begged to be muted and he kept interrupting. And so I figured I invited him to come on and debate again, but he was a coward. So I said, well, then we'll do the next best thing and go back and look at the debate. So we're looking at it now. Now we're talking about the border bill. He just made the assertive claim that he knows that he's right and I'm wrong when I said that Democrats controlled the House, the Senate, and the presidency for 2 years under the Biden administration. He says he knows for a fact that he's right, that Republicans controlled the House the entire time. So we're looking up the exact numbers right now. 20 would be the 117th Congress, correct? I believe. So we'll get the exact numbers. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay. Okay.
Democratic Party. The Democratic Party had 220 members in the House. The Republicans had 212. And I believe in the Senate, the Democrats, it was tied, if I'm not mistaken, and Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote as the VP. Correct?
Are you referring to
the independents? But it was 50-50 with the independents voting Democratic, so it was 50-50, and Kamala Harris became the tie-breaking vote. So you're incorrect. The Democrats, with the tie-breaking vote in the 50-50, controlled the Senate, and they had more members of the House from 2020 to 2022, and they had the president. So remember, he was so confident. Now where is he? Now where is he? So I said from 2020 to 2022. Now watch how he jumps all over that. Ready? Instead of admitting, yeah, shit, you're right, I was wrong. Watch what he does. Let's see. Will you admit you were incorrect?
From 2020 to 20, so 2 full years?
Yes, correct. They had the House, the Senate.
Even while Trump was president?
No, the election that occurred in 2020 that would have resulted.
So that would be 2021. So they took over in 2021.
The election occurred in 2020 for 2 years. The first 2 years of the Biden presidency. Look, you made the declarative claim. You said that I was wrong. I was willing to look it up and say that I could be wrong.
They did not start governing until 2021. Please.
Okay. Now, do you see? Because I said 2020. Because that's when the election was. Yes, they won in 2020 and then were sworn in January 20th, 2021, at the exact same time, roughly the same time that Biden was sworn in. Yes, for the first 2 years of the Biden administration, 2 full years, he had the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Well, not in 2020. No, the Senate wasn't sworn in while Trump was president. But do you see? Do you see what's happening here? Instead of saying, yeah, shit, I was wrong. Do you see? How he has to try to deflect. He's blatantly wrong, and he's just trying to deflect now. They governed for 2 full years. They governed for 2 full years. The first 2 full years of the Biden-Harris administration, they had a tie in the Senate with Harris had the tiebreaker, and they controlled the House. Correct or not?
Wrong. No.
Okay,
no.
What was wrong? Now he says that's wrong. That's not true. So let's hear him explain. I just read what the numbers were, and he says that's wrong.
Trump was in office in 2020, all of 2020.
Let's say
the whole year, the entire
from
year.
2021 to 2023.
And you said 4 years too.
No, I didn't. I said for 2 years they had the House, the Senate.
I heard 4.
Well, you were mistaken. You weren't listening because you were too busy talking over me. So again, I've directed this 3 times to you and said they controlled the House. They controlled all 3 branches. So that's it. He never admits he was wrong. He just says, "No, I'm not wrong." How do you debate someone? This guy legitimately thinks he cooked in this debate. He's making declarative statements. No, in 2020, the immigration illegal encounters were higher in 2020 than 2019. Don't you know how to read a graph, he said? We look at the graph, it shows he's wrong. No, it's not true. The Democrats never controlled the House and the Senate under the Biden administration. We look it up. See, it says, nope, I'm not wrong. They didn't. They controlled the executive and the legislature. Why didn't they do anything on the border? Your answer is? Alter Void, thanks for the $5 super chat. Correcting someone's not very nice, Rob. That's true.
They didn't do anything at the border? Like,
right. Why didn't they pass the legislation?
So HR2, why didn't they pass HR2? Is what you're asking?
I didn't say specifically HR2. Instead, they told us there wasn't a border crisis. Right? That's what they told us. They said it wasn't a border crisis. Instead, what you saw was Joe Biden rescinding executive orders.
Wrong. No.
What did they do? Tell us what they did.
Absolutely. The right wing was framing the border as some type of an invasion through right wing media.
Okay, you disagree with the frame. You disagree with the framing. So what did they do?
They drafted a bill led through James Lankford to address the concerns and issues directly by right wing Republicans.
That's in 2024. What did they do in 2021, 2022?
Last time I checked, they're presidents for 4 years, and they have an office for 4 straight years.
That's correct.
So whatever they do within the time frame is what they can accomplish. So you're going to say because it wasn't done in the first.
Right. When they had control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, so that was their chance to pass forth bills that Biden would have been able to sign. What did they do?
So they have 4 years to govern. They were trying.
So his argument he's trying to make is it's okay they didn't do anything in 2021 and there were crisis numbers, in 2022 and there were crisis numbers, in 2023 and there were crisis number because they wanted to sign the Lankford bill in 2024. That's his argument. So it doesn't matter if they ignored. They have 4 years to govern, so it doesn't matter if they ignored the problem and let it get exacerbated for 3 years. That doesn't matter because they had a chance to do something in 2024. It's ludicrous. What did they do for those first 2 years? They were trying to get that bill, the Lankford bill, through in 2021?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
So what did they do for those? If they thought that there was a problem at the border, what did they do?
Who thought it was a problem at the border?
That's what the Biden
problem at the border.
Oh, so you're admitting that the Harris-Biden administration didn't think there was a problem at the border.
Not in the same sense as MAGA Republicans.
And that's exactly. So now do you see how long it takes? I've been talking to this dude for like an hour. Do you see how long it takes for him to admit, actually, I don't think there is a problem. I don't think the numbers crossing are a problem. I think they should be left in. Do you see? But they know that it's not politically popular to say that. So we have to do this whole bullshit debate. Because he can't just be honest. He can't just say what he really thinks. He can't. So if they're saying it's a problem in 2024, why didn't they realize it was a problem in 2022? Harris and Biden. When they had the Senate and the House, why didn't they say, oh shit, these numbers are getting out of control. Let's pass a bill. Because they didn't think it was out of control. Which is why when I say Trump's better on the border than Harris-Biden, it's because Trump and the Republicans were saying this is a crisis, we need to do something. Democrats said, nah, it's good, it's good, it's good. Oh shit, the internal polling says we need to pretend like we care about this. How about this Lankford bill that doesn't do shit, that has all these loopholes?
That's why I think.
So that's exactly
what I told you. That's what I told you. That's what I told your audience. I fundamentally disagree with this entire principle.
So that's exactly. So I'll go back. So now after all that and the deflection, saying actually they didn't control the House, that was incorrect. But I was willing to look. All of us make mistakes, so I'm not holding you too much. But I was pretty sure that I was correct about that. So you can see this chart here when he talks. So remember, he said, "Oh, actually, the numbers were going up under Trump." Here's Trump, October 2020. You see that. Months that are coming, less than 75. There's December, there's January. Then you see the first month of Biden. Bam, we're up almost 25,000 immediately in February. And then look where it goes after that. We've more than doubled. It took 2 months to more than double per month how many people were coming. See that? And there she stays almost the entire time. At some point reaching 250,000 a month. Trump's top year was 390,000. And it's reaching, in December of 2023, it reached 250,000 in 1 month. And what this guy's going to have you believe is all of this, right up until roughly the very end of this chart, the Harris-Biden administration said, it's not a problem, it looks good. But then all of a sudden they realized right around the end of this chart, oh, we got to pass this Lankford bill, it's a problem. Cody Folsom, super chat for $5. Says, damn, based on this tweet, I figured he would have at least scored some point somewhere in this debate. He's getting smashed. That's right, he is. That's what I think's so funny. And the dude, I understand it's just engagement farming on his point, which is perfectly fine. I don't begrudge him that. But it's so funny to watch these people that just get crushed. Because he's responding to this tweet I had about Destiny, where Destiny's saying, where are all the right-wingers that want to debate? And I'm like, I'm right here, but you blacklisted me because I beat you around in debates. So you blacklisted me. And Andrew Marcato says, no, it's because you're a dog shit debater and I whooped your ass and blah, blah, blah. And he said it several other times in the couple months since this debate, how well he did in this debate. Look at how bad he's getting crushed. It's not even close. It's about how things were going up. Things were going up to Trump. You see October 2020, December 2020. Now you see February 2021. When Biden comes in, you see that it starts to go up. It's unsurprising when they talk to a lot of these people that are illegally crossing. They said, Biden will allow us here. The Democrats want us here. Then you see the crisis numbers that we saw all through the Biden-Harris administration. It's no surprise because they didn't treat it like a crisis, as this caller is saying. They rescinded executive orders. They wanted these people to come in. They didn't think it was a crisis. They only are now talking about it in 2024 because they realize it's an election issue because people were concerned about it. So he doesn't have any answer. He didn't answer. He only says, well, the reason that Biden-Harris didn't do anything when they had the House and the Senate and they had the executive branch was they didn't buy the framing that it was a crisis. Right, which is another way of saying they did nothing. And then he just flounders and says, but
because we're not living in your MAGA world. And also,
not like, now again, I gave you plenty of time to talk after I was done messing with you for the interruptions you gave. You'll have a chance to speak again after this. Right. So again, he again concedes that they didn't do anything. They didn't think it was a crisis. And you could see it just oozes from him. Oh, it needs to be humanitarian. And I don't buy your framing. And it wasn't this big deal. And blah, 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 blah. Again, if I have to mute you so I could get through my point because you can't continue yourself, I could do that. No problem. Anyways, you could see that it oozes from him that actually he was okay with these people coming in. That's the truth. And so was Biden, and so was Harris. They're only now pretending to care because they know that it's bad for them in the election. He also just says it was bipartisan, doesn't address any of the specific things I said that were problematic with this bill at all. Doesn't even remotely try to. It isn't opinions. I'm telling you things that were in the bill. And he's not. Again, last chance. If you interrupt me again, I'll just mute you.
Just do it. Just mute me. Okay. Mute me right now. Yeah. Mute me right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're muted. Right. Yeah. And maybe I'll bring him back. Maybe I won't. If you're asking to be muted, I'm more than happy to gratify your request there. He doesn't have any response, so he just keeps going with these buzzwords. It's bipartisan. And Trump doesn't care. Again, what I'm telling you is you could see that he doesn't care about the border. Biden-Harris didn't care about the border. They don't care. They wanted a bill that would encourage allowing these illegals to keep coming, 5,000 something a day. That's written in the bill. They wanted one that had loopholes that Mayorkas would be able to say he could give special exemptions. That's written in the bill. It can only be enforced, I think, up to like 180 days or something like that. I don't remember the exact specifics. That's in the bill. It funded these NGOs. That's in the bill. It enshrined it into law for multiple years. That's in the bill. He doesn't address any of it. He just says, but it was bipartisan, so it's all good. And the American people understand that when it comes to the border, that Trump was markedly better. And all they have is, but we tried to put this bill out at the last minute, but they can't explain the fact why they did. By the way, something worth mentioning, you see this here. Let me just for a second do this. Let me take the overlay away. Oh, I'm sorry, not the overlay. Let me take the chat away. And let's rewind you. He bragged today on X about how his audience came in my channel, and he has a bigger audience. And he bragged, as he's getting dog walked, watch his audience and their great comments. Ultra Void, thanks for the $5. Says, now I really understand why Destiny will not debate you. No double speed for reaction and no triangles in your forehead. Yeah. Okay, now just watch some of the comments. That's in the bill. It funded these NGOs. That's in the bill. It enshrined it into law. My feelings aren't facts. Law for multiple years. That's in the bill. He doesn't address any of it. He just says, but it was bipartisan. So Angry mayo noises from Rob. The fact that this guy's using his own opinion. And the American people understand that when it comes to the border, that Trump was market. Okay, it's opinions. Oh, that's not. You're an effing joke. No valid points being made by you. Effing loser. It's literally the entire time. And he brags about that. He's like, my audience came and laughed at you and said what a joke you were. He got crushed. There's Econoboy. Speaking of people getting crushed, what's up, Econoboy? It'd better. And all they have is, but we tried to put this bill out at the last minute, but they can't explain the fact why they didn't think it was a crisis for 3 years. Why they gaslit the American people that everything was good. And it was only till it was an election year when they spoke up. This goes more back to, we got a little sidetracked from what the conversation was supposed to be, that he believes that Walz won the debate against J.D. Vance. And when I outlined the reason that I think Vance clearly won, he immediately resorts to, well, you know, for things that Walz didn't even say in the debate, I think Walz won. So when I say, look, J.D. Vance did a great job of connecting Harris to the failed policies of the Biden administration, and Walz never even pushed back once, he's like, but everybody knows that's not true. It doesn't matter. That's stupid. Of course she's just VP. And you can see how he's floundering. He's using, his bias of things that weren't even said in the debate to inject his own argumentation to try to save Tim Walz. It is evident to anyone that watch that both perceptually, as this caller admits, that perceptually J.D. Vance looked good. He makes excuses immediately. He says, well, he's an experienced debater. Right, so that's why he looks better. That's why he was better on the substance, and that's why he was better at achieving the goals that he outlined. Only someone that's biased to the point where they are predisposed to hating MAGA and wanting to vote for Harris and Walz thought that Walz won that debate. He hasn't given any reason why he thought Walz won that debate. He's given deflections. He's given talking points. And he's clearly ill-equipped to argue the specifics of these issues. Instead, he's just going, but it was bipartisan. And actually, Democrats didn't have the House and the Senate. And actually, okay, they did, but that was only 2 years. And what did you expect them to do? They're there for 4 years, et cetera, et cetera. So he's out of his depth on this. And I appreciate the fact that he wants to get a little clout and come on here and think that he could talk to someone who's acknowledged several times that I'm a good debater and I'm a good talker. And I appreciate that. We'll give him a chance to respond here. But it's clear that he's out of his depth, much like Tim Walz. It's a very much Vance Walz-esque conversation that we're having here, which is ironic. He doesn't have much on details, has a lot on empty platitudes and ignoring things, and trying to sort of say, speak out of both sides of his mouth. Actually, they're trying to secure the border and they're doing a good job. But it wasn't a crisis, and these numbers were good. There was no problem that these people were coming in, and I refuse to accept your MAGA framework. Last thing I'll say is he makes some comment about how I want Marines shooting at people. Never said that. Desperation. Next thing he'll say that I wrote Project 2025, just like the Harris-Walz administration or campaign. So he's learned from people that know how to have false smears and things like that. There you go. You're unmuted. If you could contain yourself.
If I can contain myself. So that's what you do. You mute your debate opponent and then just talk over them and present their opinions as fake opinions. Like everything you just said is an absolute lie. And even to the point where you said Marines on the border and I want you to shoot them. I was asking about your authoritarian position on the border and whether it empowers.
It's not true. He literally said that I wanted to shoot. Everybody heard it. That's what he said. Now he says that's a lie. I didn't say that. That's literally what he said.
From when J.D. Vance in the debate last night wants to empower the southern border and empower agents. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean that they get to shoot immigrants crossing the border? That's what I asked you specifically. And then in a joke, because I debate other MAGAs, and I don't know what you think I'm coming to your platform for some clout. That's kind of a silly comment to make. But I've debated other MAGAs, and they have the same position, or they had the position that all it would take is just a battalion of Marines at the U.S. southern border, and that would absolutely solve the security problem. So that's why I asked you that. But again, you wanted to mute me to misrepresent my position, which you've done numerous times tonight, and that's why I've started to talk over you and turn into some bad faith argument, because you're absolutely arguing in complete bad faith. I mean, everything you've said is just based on feelings. Everything you said is based on emotions about the bills. You're not even going to get into it. And when I do respond to every single point that you make, you want to mute me and say, no, this is what he's really saying. And this is, he's doing talking points, and bipartisan is a fuck.
Now, he keeps saying I responded to all the points, but can anyone show me at one point anywhere in this debate where he responded to the objections I had to the Lankford bill? I made 5 or 6 objections over and over and over again. He's literally never addressed one. The first part, Alejandro, the first part of the show was about the IG report on January 6th. Jojo, if you can't see that guy's trolling you, I don't know what to say. He's laughing his ass off. He's been trolling you, saying that I have hammers and sickles up. He's clearly a troll, so I don't know what to tell you. So he just keeps saying, he says, this is what you do, you mute me. He literally said, go ahead and mute me. Go ahead. That's what he wanted me to mute him because he just kept interrupting. He says everything, I just give empty platitudes. I'm the only one talking about specifics. Over and over, he very rarely actually makes declarative statements, and almost every time it's been wrong. The numbers of border crossers were up in 2020 from 2019. Wrong. Democrats never had the House and the Senate while Biden was there. Wrong.
Fuck it, whatever you said as a code word or a keyword or whatever insane talking points that you do have over there. So anyways, back to the debate and back to who we think won the debate, because I was trying to give my opinion as to why I think Tim Walz won that debate and J.D. Vance actually lost. J.D. Vance did good at Republican talking points. He's a very good debater, which you were trying to re-explain to your audience and repackage my own argument to them, which is very, very weird to do, especially when I'm literally sitting here in a Discord call with you and you're trying to repackage my positions to your audience, which is very weird. But I was trying to explain that J.D. Vance is kind of similar to like a used car salesman. Like he's very good at selling you something without saying a whole lot of substance to it. And that's what his common debate tactic was. And he has much more experience in doing that over Tim Walz. Because like I said, that was Tim Walz's very first national debate. But the most thing that Tim Walz, when J.D. Vance was talking about the U.S. southern border, his position was to just empower the law enforcement to do its job, manifest the power. He's saying hospitals are full, houses are full. He's worried for American citizens. He's saying the border.
Walter Void, thanks for the super chat, $5, says, I want Doge to recommend the alligator moat that we never got. I'm sure it would save a lot of money when there's no walls.
Is open. And then he also lied about the CBP One app magically waving the wand to become a U.S. citizen, which is an absolute lie. That's not what that intends to do. So anyways, all in all, during the first 2 years of the Biden administration, they were trying to get legislation.
Now, here we go. So I'm assuming someone in his chat told him, now that we're an hour into this discussion with Rob, and he's been for the past 40 minutes saying, when Democrats controlled the House and Senate, what did they do about the border? And he kept saying, they didn't control the House and Senate. Then I proved him wrong, and he said, no, I'm still not wrong. Now, after half an hour of me saying they didn't do anything, someone in his chat or he looked up what his excuse is going to be here now. So here we go. Here's why they didn't do anything.
Legislation through for the U.S. southern border and faced backlash from Joe Manchin and Sinema. And
there you go. It's Manchin and Sinema's fault. So Biden tried to secure the border, but Manchin and Sinema wouldn't let him.
In the Congress, similar to this year with MAGA Republicans trying to fight back, because Joe Manchin and Sinema absolutely are working against the Democratic Party. So when they were trying to get legislation through, especially this year for that U.S. southern border, you can bring up all you want and bring up numbers and all the past, and it doesn't matter. Where the issues, time moves forward. Time moves in one direction and one direction only. We don't loop backwards. We don't spin backwards. We don't circle back to the past. We live in the present. And when given the opportunity to pass a bill that would have substantially assisted the U.S. southern border with security, with money, with funding, with resources for border agents and resources for asylum judges, which is absolutely needed because the asylum list is backlogged and they need to see a judge in order to be determined if they can stay in the country or not. I know this is a lot of information. So they need to see a judge before being decided if they can stay in the country or not. These would have added the resources to be able to handle that, because if you are concerned of criminals in the U.S. Coming across the border, you got to find out, right? We got to find out if they are a criminal, if they do have a past. And in order to do that, they need to see these asylum judges. And that money would have absolutely helped that take place. But again, Donald Trump and the Republicans decided not to give Donald Trump an advantage in the 2024 election.
Now, notice, again, I was able to let him get his whole spiel out without interrupting. Notice that every time. Then he'll interrupt me and then say, go ahead and mute me. Go ahead, when he's constantly interrupting. Last time it was 10 seconds. We'll see if he could beat his record this time and go more than 10 seconds without interrupting me. I'll ask you again. I don't know what I say in this little segment. Have you heard him dispute one thing I said about the Lankford bill? One thing at all? Nope. He just keeps saying, it was a good bill. Now he does at least make one detail finally about the bill. It gives money. Okay. But he still doesn't address anything that I said about the bill Okay, so again, you can see it's ironic that he talks about that J.D. Vance was this used car salesman that said a bunch of things with no substance. That's literally what he just did. He doesn't address any of the specific things I said. Again, he claims that I'm misrepresenting the arguments that he made. I'm not. He's speaking in empty platitudes. Everything you said about me is a lie and it's a misrepresentation, and no, it's all untrue. Now he does try to make two arguments that I'll talk about specifically surrounding this. The first argument is he says that it's important because it gives funding. Well, the other bills that were suggested, for example, Trump trying to give funding to them, trying to build the wall, etc., in 2019 that the Democrats shut down, also tried to give funding. The Republican bill also tries to give funding. The problem is it's not just a matter of funding. It's the fact that these Border Patrol agents, as they've said, yes, they do need more money, but they're being intentionally hamstrung by the Biden administration. He hasn't addressed the fact that this bill specifically allowed loopholes where Mayorkas himself and other people in the administrative state would be able to waive and have exemptions for people. We can see that they would have been likely to do that because they like these people coming in. As the person that's calling in, I forget your name, I'm so sorry, Alex, I think. As Alex, it's clear that he didn't think it was a crisis and was fine with the record numbers of people we had coming in. That's the exact feeling that the Democrats and Joe Biden had. They only started to pretend to care about it when it came to 2024. He says that he says that this money would be good. Yeah, I'm sure money would be good, but we can see even without the money that he's suggesting that this bill is necessary, the executive orders that Trump had these numbers far lower than the numbers that we had of Joe Biden. And the Republicans passed a bill that had more teeth, and you could see what the response is. Democrats don't actually want a bill with teeth because they want the bill that has the loopholes and all of that stuff that would have made the bill worthless in the first place. That's why they wanted a bill like this in the first place, because it had these loopholes. It would have been enshrined in law. It did fund the NGOs. It did make sure that like 5,000 or something would be able to come in a day. I said it funds the NGOs. He says, listen to him. To his credit, he let me go for a while there without interrupting. So listen, he says wrong when I say it funds NGOs. This is important. Bill like this in the first place because it had these loopholes. It would have been enshrined in law. It did fund the NGOs. It did make sure that like 5,000 or something would be able to come in a day. It did. You said wrong. It doesn't fund the NGOs?
Your framing you have of this.
Okay, so then you interrupted erroneously because you're just saying what I'm saying is factual. You're just saying that you disagree with the framing of it. Now, again, it's ironic because he's the person who seems to be hyper-focused on this bill, but it's quite evident that I know more about what's in that bill than him, who's using this as the whole reason for an excuse as to why the Democrats did nothing when they controlled the show for 2 years.
You are lying about the bill, You're lying.
What part did I lie about?
You were lying about the funds. You were coping about the funds.
So you're
the
telling
funds
me
aren't going to do anything. Actually, you're saying the funds.
Said what part did I lie about? What part did I lie about the bill? You said I said where did I say the funds are not going to do anything? Show me, quote me where I said. Did I say that? Did I say the funds aren't going to do anything? Oh, ask the chat. Did I say the funds won't do anything? In fact, I said the opposite. I said yes, more money would be good, but it's not just about money. Did I ever say the funds won't do anything? So he says I'm lying because I said the funds won't do anything, which I never said. So that's step one where he says I'm lying. Said that. Where did I say the phrase the funds will not do anything?
It had to have been at least 10 seconds ago, maybe 15
Okay, and I said the direct words, the funds aren't going to do anything. That's what I said. And you're like, that's not true, that's a lie. The funds will do something. That's the argument that you're making? No, you said lie specifically when I said it funds NGOs. You said that's a lie. Does it fund NGOs? We'll go step by step. Here's the things I said. Does it fund NGOs?
Does the bill fund NGOs?
Yes.
What NGOs do they fund, and what is the purpose of the
question I was asking was, does the bill fund NGOs?
Oh, sure, but what is the purpose of the NGOs?
The bill funds NGOs.
What is the purpose? What are the NGOs doing, and what are they doing? Because the framing is the
lot of
purpose
these groups
of this.
now, why they do it's irrelevant because we're going to get to specific things, but it is true that the NGOs are intentionally helping people come to the border and giving them instructions on how to claim asylum and get through here, right? That's one of the reasons this would be bad, because it literally funds the organizations that are helping so many of these people come to the border.
Okay. So the NGOs that are helping them with the legal process.
So the next thing I said was that it allows like 5,000 something a day or something like that. Yes or no? Is that true?
So you don't want them facilitating the legal process?
I asked you a specific question. Yes or no? You said what I said was a lie. You said that the claims I said about this bill was a lie. Yes. So when I said, okay, so it does allow 5,000 something. You acknowledge that. A day.
Yeah. Yep. Until Biden can shut down the border. Until Biden can shut that border down completely.
Does it provide for people in the administrative state like Mayorkas to give special exemptions?
Administrative state? The administrative state?
Yes.
So you believe in the so Project 2025 specifically talks about the administrative state.
Wow, that's
very
cool.
interesting, Rob.
I've also
Very
heard Bill
interesting.
Clinton use the term administrative
Very
state,
interesting.
so I must be a Democrat as well.
So is this a deep state?
What does this have anything? What does this have to do?
What does
with
administrative state mean, Rob? What does administrative state mean?
Administrative state means the people in the executive branch that are tasked with being people that are in the cabinet that are able to make these decisions.
No, that's not what that means.
Okay, then
no.
so you define what I meant by administrative state.
You know exactly what you meant by when you
I
talk
do know
about
what I meant about
state.
administrative state. What I'm talking about is there are people in these agencies, such as Mayorkas, that. So you notice I've made basically 4 or 5 central claims, right, about why this bill was bad, and he says I'm lying about the bill. I'm wrong about what I'm saying. So I say, okay, does it fund NGOs? And notice the answer to that is I didn't lie. I'm not wrong. He just thinks, but that's a good thing. So he's going to deflect. Instead of saying, yeah, I guess you're right, it does. He says, no, you're wrong. Okay? Then I'm like, when we're on this subject, I say, does it allow exemptions from people in the administrative state? That's a term they use in Project 2025, so you're for Project 2025. You know what you mean by administrative. What does that have anything to do? He's constantly interrupting and deflecting to get off. Where does Project 2025 come up at all here? Because I use the term administrative state. Yes, I'm saying unelected bureaucrats, including people like Mayorkas, this bill gave them powers to have specific exemptions when they're allowed to allow people in. They are happy with the amount of people that we're coming across, and this gives them the ability to have exemption power. So they, because we already saw their record of 2021, 2022, of 2023, of believing like you do, that this wasn't a problem, that the framing of MAGA was wrong, that they would continue to employ that when they had ultimate authority to do so, because it was enshrined in this law to give them exceptions. Yes, they did. My question to you is, you made the declarative, you interrupted me to say that I was lying about the things that I said this bill did. So far, you have conceded that I was correct about funding the NGOs.
No, I know I didn't.
So it doesn't fund NGOs. You can't even. So now he says he didn't. Listen, this is a huge pet peeve of mine. This is how you can tell you're debating someone who's bad faith. He knows he's getting blown out. So now he'll say something, and then just 15 seconds later, he'll go back on it, and for no discernible purpose. He literally said, yeah, you're right, it does fund NGOs. Now listen, when I bring it up, he says, I never said that. Interrupted me to say that I was lying about the things that I said this bill did. So far, you have conceded that I was correct about funding the NGOs.
No, I know I didn't.
Conceded, so it doesn't fund NGOs. You can't even be honest about what you just said. You just admitted, yes, it does fund the NGOs. Then when I say you admitted that, you say, no, I didn't admit that. So I'll ask you again for clarification. It's clear that you accuse me of not arguing in good faith. You're duplicitous and even benign answers. I will ask again for clarification. I will ask again for clarification. Did this bill fund NGOs? A yes or no will suffice.
Yes, to help immigrants cross the legal manner.
So then when I said it funds NGOs, and you said I was a liar, and then you said yes, and then I said okay,
you were a liar on
and
the
then
funding.
you said
You're a
yes,
liar on the funding.
and then when I said, oh, but you said yes, and you said I didn't say that, and then I asked you again, you said yes, so you've now waffled on this 3 times. So one, I said that it funded NGOs. Do you see my frustration with this? Does anyone else get this sort of frustration? I know this is a little meta, but just to talk about this for a second, I fucking hate that. It's such an annoyance to me. Okay, you're wrong. You're misrepresenting what this bill does. You're wrong about it, or you're lying about it. Okay, I'm making 4 claims. Claim 1, does the bill fund... Let's go through step by step to see what I'm wrong about. Does it fund NGOs? Well, but I think it's a good thing. Nonetheless, does it fund them? That was my claim. Yes. Okay, then we go a little further, and I'm like, look, you've already admitted that I was correct, that it does fund NGOs. No, I didn't. I didn't admit that. Yes, you did. No. Okay, then let's ask again. Does it fund NGOs? Yeah. Now, what's the utility of him lying about that? It's just someone who's not interested in a good faith conversation. It's someone that knows that they're incapable of keeping up. Notice when he'd ask me questions, he's like, he's got a gotcha question for me. Hey, Rob, how many Marine battalions do you think it would take to secure the border? Did you see how I answered in like a microsecond? I'm like, I don't know. Imagine if I was like, well, wait a minute. I don't agree with the framing. And, maybe, and he'd be like, okay, do you think 1 battalion? Yeah, I think 1 battalion. And he's like, okay, so you've admitted that you think 1 battalion, but here's why that's wrong. I never admitted 1 battalion. Yes, you did. No, I never admitted 1 battalion. Of course you did. Let me ask you again. Do you think 1 battalion would be enough to secure? Yeah. Okay, then you waffled. You said yes, then you said I never said yes, and then you said yes again. I never waffled. Now, what have we achieved? What have we achieved with that conversation? Nothing. And then he goes, after all the interruptions, all the bullshit, which is just designed to deflect, to cause you to lose your train of thought, just so he can tell his audience, like, yeah, MAGA's dog shit, they're stupid, it's all talking points. And then he goes on X months later, oh, you're a dog shit debater, I crushed you. This guy's literally bragging about this debate performance today. Online. Conceded that's true. Second, does it allow exemptions for it doesn't trigger until 5,000 or so come a day?
So in the NGOs, that's a legal process for crossing. You support
Second
legal
question.
crossing.
See, now he's back to something completely deflecting. I made 4 points basically on this bill. He says I'm wrong about those points. I ask him which specific one. He can't give an answer, so we go point by point. He's incapable of having an honest discussion.
Correctly.
Second question.
Do you support legal crossing of the border?
No, I do not support that. The NGOs.
So you don't support legal immigration
What
either.
you're doing is trying. You accuse me of being a liar, and
You
all the
support legal immigration?
You accuse me of being a liar, and all the substantive points that I said were true. You can't argue that, and so now you're trying
What
to deflect.
substantive point?
And you're saying, okay, it does fund NGOs, but that's a good thing. The substantive points there are the following things I said. 1, it funds NGOs. After some waffling, you had to concede that yes, it does fund
I'm not
NGOs,
waffling.
and
There's
now
no
you
waffling.
are waffling. You said yes, it does. Then you said no, I never said yes. Then you said yes, it does. That is the definition of waffling. You are directly changing your answer. The second thing I said was that it allows an exemption. It doesn't really trigger until there's 5,000 or something a day, some number. You acknowledged, yes, that's true. That part of it was true. The third part I said was it allows people like Mayorkas in the administrative state, people like under Mayorkas in that office, to give exemptions. Your answer to that is that true or not?
You're spinning so much, dude, because
I'm not spinning.
number one,
these are the same arguments I've made about this bill since the first
No,
time you brought it up that you have
you're
not addressed. You have accused me of lying, so I'm just asking you whether or not I made basically 4 points. So the first 2 points you have been forced to concede were true. So now we're on to point 3. Did it give powers for Mayorkas and people?
Rob, the more you talk, that doesn't mean you win. You know this, right?
I understand that. That's why I'm asking you simple.
Here.
That's why you interrupted me is the point I was making, and you said that I was lying. Now the burden is on you to show I was lying. I made 4 claims. So far, we've gone through 2 claims, and it turns out I wasn't lying. Now we're on claim 3. I'm asking you, did this bill give exemption power to Mayorkas where he could have exemptions for certain people that cross the border? Yes or no?
I was referring to the lying about the framing of what I said because we're having a meta conversation about the conversation because you're layering this thing instead of just addressing what it's saying at the surface. You're going to have mini conversations about the conversation. I'm not interested in that. I will literally flare out with this.
You can flare out. So now you can say. Sure. So now you can say. So he interrupted me. Now you could go back to being quiet. So when I said that this bill did these sort of things, and he said you're a liar. Then we had to painstakingly go through and say, okay, what am I lying about? Then he defaults back to, okay, the things I said are technically true. It's just that my framing of it is a lie. That's the problem. My framing of it's
yes.
So the things
there
that
you go.
I said, the things that I said about last chance, you already interrupted me to call me a liar, and then we're made a fool of.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying right now.
If you can't contain yourself, then I'll be forced to mute you again. Now, one of the things that I think was funny was when I mentioned this before, you asked me to mute you and then complained when I complied with your request, which is also funny. So I'll go back to the point I was trying to make. It's hard to keep a train of thought when you have someone interrupting, calling you a liar, and then when you go painstakingly through the claims you made, they're forced to admit, okay, you're telling the truth about all that. I just disagree with your framing of it. So you can see sort of when it comes to the substance of talking about the specific bill, he hasn't really said anything. He just says, it gives money. I've already addressed that. Then he makes this second argument that's now going to be an excuse for why the Democrats didn't do anything in 2021, 2022. He says, well, it's because Manchin and Sinema. Nonetheless, Biden was the person in charge. He was running the party. Why couldn't he get them on board with anything? Is the argument really going to be last chance? it's not a matter of being a dictator. It's not like he has to break their arm. The executive is supposed to actually have the people underneath him be the party leader and get something accomplished. It's on him whether or not he could get something accomplished to deal with the border. The truth is, because like Alex here, who's called in, he didn't think it was a crisis. Alex has already given you the answer. Alex shows himself that he's like, actually, I didn't have a problem with those numbers. I think that it was being misframed. I think it was bad the way MAGA was framing it. Yes, that's exactly my argument. That's how Biden fell. That's why you can't point to the substantive bills that Biden was suggesting be pushed through. I'll allow him to try to do that when he gets a chance to speak. He could say, oh, this is the bill that Biden tried to put that would have had more security. And then Manchin and Sinema said, no, sorry, Joe Biden, we won't go along with that. I'll allow him to give the example of that bill. I certainly will. Then when it comes to the debate proper, like he says that Vance didn't have any substance and he just starts to prattle on with these empty platitudes about MAGA and things like that. Vance had far more substance than you saw from Walz. It's objective to anyone that was watching. He then proceeds to just make these excuses like, well, of course, Vance, he's a debater. He's a debater. That's it. He went to Yale. Right. These are giving excuses for why he performed better than Walz. So I am going to get out of here by 11:30, so I'll give you a chance to respond to all of this. But I have to say, like, with one of the things I always think is funny when dealing with someone like you is it's not just that you're like not doing so hot, particularly on the substance of the things we're talking about, but it's your arrogance while you're doing so poorly that I find incredibly amusing. And so I'll give you a chance to respond to all this, but know that I'm very much enjoying this interaction. And I'm glad that you think you're doing well and you're using these buzzwords that you're doing, but you're doing very poorly. You don't even understand the fundamentals of the bill that you're talking about. And you're actually waffling on whether or not you say things like, I never said that it funds NGOs, and then I'm forced to go through it. And then you complain that I'm getting so meta talking about these specifics. When you call someone a liar and they ask you, well, what part did I lie about? And you are forced to say, well, it's just a framework, and you have to waffle continuously. You can see how the debate gets drugged down in the mud with things like this. But go ahead, you have a chance to respond, and then this will be your last chance to respond. So we'll give you up to 5 minutes here, and then I do have to get going at some point tonight. So go ahead. So do you think he'll respond to the direct criticisms that I had of the bill? Do you think he will? Do you think he'll put forth the bills that Biden tried to push in 2021 and 2022 that were sabotaged by the evil Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema? You think that's what he's going to do? Let's find out what his closing statement is here.
All right.
Here it comes with the substance. Here we go.
Yes. I really do appreciate when you give my arguments to your audience in the play-by-play, like as if they're not listening. That's my personal favorite. Like as if we're not talking to each other in like a one-on-one conversation, and we don't have hundreds and hundreds of people watching us right now. So the play-by-play back is really interesting. I'm sure your audience appreciates that, and having it MAGA-splained to them because they just can't hear me on what I'm saying. That's very adorable. I do like that debate tactic. I will remember that one in the future. I do think it is very important when debating to have a back and forth in good faith. I mean, we didn't really have good faith from the beginning. You were muting me. I mean, I could have did better, not like talking over you, but I mean, you were just kind of talking and being loud with your talking. And when I would explain the fundamental disagreement I have, because I mean, our disagreements are fundamental. Like, I am not a Trump supporter. I am not you. I don't live in right-wing world like you do. I used to. Trust me, I grew up Fox News watcher. I told you, you're going to call it cope or whatever, but I grew up in the same position you were in, and I came away from it. So I fully understand the beliefs and positions that you have and how you get them. But when I'm debating you and I'm talking to you directly. And
so far, has there been one argument that he's made here? Has he made any point? Well, I used to be MAGA, and you're loud. You talk loud. Maybe I shouldn't have interrupted, and you weren't good faith from the beginning. Any substance.
The way you repackage what I'm saying to you, and I'm arguing every single point you're making, is I don't know if that's a lasting tactic or how people are going to engage with you on the left. And
he says he's arguing every single point I'm making. Can you show him once arguing when I said there's exemptions for Mayorkas? Can you show him once arguing when I said it allows 5,000 people a day? Can you show him once arguing when I say it would enshrine it in law, which means even if Trump wins, he wouldn't be able to rescind it? Can you show me once him arguing? He did say the words, the NGOs are good, so I'll give him credit there, I guess. He didn't make any substantive videos. He still thinks, I argued every point that you made.
I'm not even as far left as many would be, but I'm just recently getting into the space myself. But I was arguing every point specifically with the U.S. southern border, and I know that MAGA will focus on this, and Trump supporters like focusing on the southern border because it is the only issue that you have to run on in the 2024 election, but that is also by design because Donald Trump ensured that would happen by killing the border bill that would have at least addressed the concerns, because you would have needed bills. You would have needed more bills. This wasn't going to be the fix-all. This wasn't going to be the bill to end all bills, and the U.S. southern border would be cured now, and everything is great. No, this would have been a bill, and there would have been more bills, more legislation done, more work done in the government, which is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to go to work for us, and they're supposed to pass bills for the American people that are going to directly address our concerns. So to say that that it should come from the executive, as if it's like America's a dictatorship and not working with our Congress, is very, very frightening to me. And yes, our debate that we started with J.D. Vance and Tim Walz, I already said J.D. Vance did be optically confident. I agree with that. Like he came across, he was able to be quick and snappy, which is very important in a debate. I've noticed debates when it comes to presidential debates, vice presidential debates, you have to be more entertaining than the other person. People are waiting for a quickness. They don't want long-winded arguments. They don't want to hear actual policies and legislation. They want someone who's going to get clickbait. And that's why you specifically think Tim Walz lost, because he wasn't attacking J.D. Vance. He was more so addressing the questions and the substance of the questions, which I feel, at least how I vote, is very important to do. Like I clickbait and click farming is fun, and it's cool to do for TikToks and Reels and the internet, but I'm trying to listen to some substance. So when it came back and forth, just in conclusion, I know you said you got to go, so I don't want to take your time too much. And again, thank you for having me on your show regardless, even though we do have fundamental disagreements on this and it got a little heated. I do appreciate you and your audience's time for having me over here. I just feel that on the substance of the debate, Tim Walz won when answering the questions. J.D. Vance didn't give a single specific answer to any question. Tim Walz was very specific with his answers, and even to the point of the foundation of like why I've switched completely from, I mean, I'm speaking to you personally as a voter now and not someone with the platform, but me personally, why I've switched from the Republican Party to voting Democrat this year is Donald Trump and January 6th. And I know that you were talking to your other guests that you have no interest in January 6th, but I'm telling you the majority of the country still does. And that was a very, very dark day in American history where Donald Trump tried to overturn the results of the election and send a mob at the Capitol to try to physically stop the electoral process. And I just view that as the antithesis to the United States. So I will be voting happily against Donald Trump, and maybe the Republican Party can get their act together again someday, but that is not going to be this year.
Okay. So a couple things there. In full, when you listen to him, he made the claim earlier in that debate that I'm wrong, that it's a losing issue to focus on the border. That's what he said. Then he just said there, the only issue that Republicans could focus on is the border. Then he said, the reason I'm voting is January 6th, and most Americans agree with me. Okay, so if Trump was just running on the border and January 6th, most Americans agree, that's very important. How'd Trump win? How'd that happen? Interesting. But you could see there, no substance at all. Nothing. He didn't address any of the points I made problem with the Lankford bill. He didn't address any of the points why the Democrats didn't do anything about this in 2021, 2022, or 2023. Nothing. Now, I'm going to get a little debate strategy here with you. Let's see how well you can see. I don't know with the lighting. Well, shit. Let's see. Can I bring up... Give me a second here. How can I do this? Okay, let's see if I could do this. This is how, when I did policy debate in college, this is sort of how it would work. This is going to be really bad, so bear with me. You would have tons of sheets of paper. Everyone talks like auctioneers, right? And each sheet of paper would be a different argument. So maybe one's the economy, and then the next is global warming, etc. Now, the way it works is the first person speaks and they'll make argument A, an argument B, and an argument C, right? So I say the economy's doing good, the plan will kill the economy, that leads to war, A, B, C. Now, the next team then gets to speak and they'll respond. And their response will be something like this. Here's argument 1, here's argument 2, here's argument 3, here's argument 4, here's argument 5. Now, arguments 1, 2, and 3 will be like, in response to Rob saying the economy's good, it's not good because of job loss, and it's not good because of inflation, and it's not good because consumer confidence. And then they skip over the plan hurts the economy. And then they go to, in response to Rob saying the economy will cause a war, it won't cause a war because we have newer technology, nuclear weapons. That means that there won't be wars like there were in the past. And because even with the economy doing poorly, there's enough other good relations that there won't cause a war, right? And then what'll happen is I'll respond. In order to win the argument on this particular sheet of paper, I have to win A, B, and C. The economy's doing good, your plan hurts the economy, and that's really bad. That causes a war. If I only win the economy's good and you hurt the economy, but I don't have an impact to that, then it doesn't really matter. Or if I win the economy's doing really well, but I don't win that your plan hurts it, then it doesn't really matter. Or if I don't win that the economy's doing well, well, then it doesn't matter if a bad economy causes war because that's inevitable. The plan's irrelevant to that. So then I have to respond to all these. Off his number 1, here's answer A. Here's answer B. Off his number 2, here's answer C. Off the number 3, cross-apply C, and here's D. Extend my B argument, he didn't answer it. Now, off the number 4, here's arguments E and F. And then off argument 5, here's G. That's how debate looks. It broadens. Now, what happens is you might start off after the first 2 or 3 speeches with 7 or 8 broad topics. We're talking about climate change, the economy. And then what happens is each of those sheets of paper, the argument balloons out. You're talking more specifics. You outline the general argument and then you get into the specifics. So this is called a flow. It branches out. But what happens is the amount of topics that you're talking about contracts. Okay, we're not going to talk about the climate change stuff anymore. We're going to focus on the economy. Now, what happens is at the end of the debate, each side gives a final speech. And one of the things it's recommended to do is give what's called an overview. So you explain to the judge why you win the debate. Look, we think we're going to win this debate because we're going to win the economy argument. Even if they're able to win some of the arguments on climate change, the economy is going to be more important because a world where the economy immediately collapses because of their plan will mean that things like climate change will inevitably get worse. And a world of war means that the climate will get worse anyways. We'll win that this economic collapse starts before they're able to solve any of the impacts of climate change. Okay, now let's go to the proper argument, right? One of the things you notice that's a mistake, you'll get where I'm going here. One of the things you notice that's a mistake in debate that younger debaters make, or people that are novices, they'll ignore the flow and they'll just give like a 6-minute overview. They'll just start talking. Well, the economy is really important. And my dad lost his job and it was really tough for us. And I come from a place where, on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And then the timer ends and it's like, you didn't say anything. You just gave a big overview, but you didn't address any of the specific claims. None. You didn't address them. That's what that guy was doing. I'm like, here's 5 arguments. You say this plan is a good plan. Here's 5 arguments why it's not. And he's never giving you arguments why it's good. He's just saying, nah, it's good. And you're MAGA, and you're MAGA-splaining. And I used to be Republican, but he's never addressing the arguments. Yeah, I come from a middle-class family. Right, Cloak Shadows. That's what happened in that whole discussion. That's exactly what happened. He was used to debating people that didn't have any criticism of the Lankford bill. He didn't know shit about what the Lankford bill was. To him and his audience, it's sufficient to say, oh, Trump doesn't care about the border. He didn't want the Lankford bill. So that proves he doesn't care about the border. There, Democrats win on the border. Now, he might think that's clever. And he might think that that was even good in this debate he just had with me. How'd that work with the American voters? Did they buy that bullshit? Did they? And you can see how duplicitous it is. Because as soon as you get into the details of like, okay, well, let's talk about this. He's like, well, actually, we do need to leave these people in. It's a humanitarian crisis. Right. And that's the problem with the Democrats pushing this bill. The reason they were silent for 3 years, why they rescinded the executive orders, why they said you were a racist or a conspiracy theorist when you were talking about how bad the border was, they only started to give a shit once they saw Democratic voters saying, we're tired of this shit. We're being overran by illegals. They said, internal polling's not good in this. So now we got to do something. All of a sudden, Kamala Harris, the candidate for Democrats, is saying, yeah, I am going to do a border wall if I get in there. The Democrats just spent 8 years telling you border walls were racist. Now they're advocating for it. Now I'm going to be wrapping up here soon. Now be honest with yourself. And listen, I fully understand. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I get that. There are people that watch me that don't like me. Raceland, I'm doing a call-in show tomorrow, so bring it then if you want. But I maybe got 10 more minutes on, so I'll probably just wrap up and be done. But I will do a call-in show tomorrow. I want you to be honest. How well do you think that guy did? Even if you don't like me and you're a lefty. Courtney. The dogs and Hank are in bed. He did terribly. If I was a left-winger, I would be like, wow, that guy sucked. He did not advocate my positions well. He didn't. He did come from a middle-class family. So where do you get off when you're that guy with this arrogance? It's because you're dog shit at debating. You had to mute me multiple times to talk over me and tell your audience what I was saying instead of letting me speak in the debate. You got laughed at the entire time. I wasn't even prepared for a border debate and still killed it. If I didn't, you wouldn't have had to mute me constantly. Then tell your viewers what I was saying while I was muted. Then my viewers flooded your chat to make fun of you because you only have like 100 to 200 viewers. You can't be trusted to moderate a debate. You need to find a moderator. I went to your small-ass stream into a MAGA echo chamber with you as both debater and moderator. The cowardice was muting me when you were getting cooked, and then MAGA-splaining my own points to your audience. No wonder people with real debate skills have blacklisted you. Okay, Rob GPT. And then one of his fanboys goes, this goes fucking hard. What do you say to someone with that amount of delusion? I'd do a moderated debate with him anytime. And to his credit, he did have more viewers than me. That's true. And they thought he did well. At least that's what they were telling him. I'm celebrating how happy I am that I finally reached 10,000 subs. That guy that you just heard has more than 6 times the subscribers of me. His live stream where he talked to me, maybe it's on his members only, huh? But he had more viewers than me.
This is the...
Maybe he deleted the video. He'll get... he would ratio me if we're having a discussion on X because he has more followers than me. On X, he has 7,000 followers to my... What do I have? Not that many. 6,000. I guess I'm close to him. He deleted it. I think he did. I don't know if he told his audience to come to my chat or if they just organically came. I don't give it. They're pleased as peach. He kicked my ass. He still believes it. Well, it's not that I'm equating sub count with competence. Of course not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are a lot of people listening to that guy like he's good. He goes on X, and it's not the first time. He's repeatedly brought me up on X that he somehow kicked my ass in this debate. Now, I don't give a shit. Don't get me wrong. I don't really care. I just needed something to talk about today and thought, I'd been thinking to myself for a while, like, I would like to go back some of these debates I had just a couple months ago, where I was saying, if the election comes down to the border, the economy, etc., like, Trump would win that. Let me know when I'm back. OBS dropped, so I'm here. Can you see me? Okay, I'm back on Twitch. YouTube, can you see me? Am I back? Let me know on YouTube if anyone can see me. Okay, I'm back. Here you can see. The reason that Destiny doesn't debate me, it's because clown conservatives like me are dog shit at debating and entirely bad faith. You had to mute me multiple times, right, because you couldn't control yourself and talk over me and tell your audience what I was saying instead of speaking in the debate. That's the big man. He had an invitation to come on the show tonight and debate. I am living in the past. That's true. But I thought it was interesting. I was like, you know what? Let's go back. I like to go back and watch some of my debates from time to time. And those ones are real cool. I'd love to go back and watch that panel debate that me and Andrew Wilson were on Dylan Burns' panel and debated Hutch, and Joe Lewis was on there, and was it Econoboy? And Pisco. I'd love to go back and watch that. Because I think I was exactly right. So, anyways, that was that. It was fun. Now, I don't wish any hard feelings on this Andrew guy, by the way. Let me be clear here, just to give you a little idea of where the headspace I'm coming from. This Andrew guy hasn't done shit to me of a personal nature. He says I'm a dog shit debater. Who gives a shit? It's not a big deal to me. I wish him happiness and wealth in life and whatever. I really do. It is not a personal... I think he was bad faith in that discussion and he was garbage as far as a debater, but that's okay. That's in bounds as far as I'm concerned. Him saying, you suck, I say you suck, whatever. He didn't say shit about my family. He didn't... Nothing like that. No big deal. Right? So, in that sense, I don't want anyone to give him a hard time or any shit like that. I just thought it was funny. I love when people are so arrogant and so, oh, I crushed you, blah, blah, blah. And then you go and you look. And it is reminiscent to, you know, anytime I make a post about Destiny being shitty and all of his audience is like, Rob GPT. Can I do the Rob GPT? How do I do it? There's new emojis up. So if you remember, which many of you are, try the emojis. Try them out. There's a Rob GPT one. You got her, babe. Did that show up for me? I can't tell. Nah, it didn't work. I'm not a member of my own show, so I can't use the emoji. Damn. So yeah, become a member. You get access to emojis. By the way, I'm going to be putting more up. If you go to my Discord and you have emojis that you would like me to put up, I can put up to 25. Yeah, the crying one does really well. Let me try it. Oh, I got it. My first emoji ever. It's funny. I did it. But all of the Destiny swallows are like Rob GPT. It's fucking laughable. It just is. It's so laughable. And they just repeat it verbatim. Oh, he doesn't talk to you because you use ChatGPT for every one of your arguments. No, I generously agreed to debate Destiny, knowing that I was literally on a 2-week work stretch. I literally walked in the door from getting back from work and said, sure, I'll do the debate that you want on the topic you want. He agreed to then talk about what I wanted afterwards. I did a 5-hour debate with him. In preparation with that debate, I'd been talking behind the scenes with Pisco because I was supposed to have that very debate with Pisco. I looked up some of the sources that they were allegedly using, and I looked up some reviews of that, but didn't have a time to go through the 100-page paper or something like that, but still wanted to be generous with my time and debate Destiny. One of the things I looked at was a Claude GPT summary. I didn't realize it was Claude at the time. I just saved screenshots. I gave it. I said 98% of what I said that GPT summary said, which was that there could be state-level insurrections, was absolutely true. We went to the source material. It said that there could be state-level insurrections. Destiny said, okay, I guess you're right, and we moved on. And because Destiny got embarrassed in that debate and decided to rage quit 2 hours after the fact, and then the next day say, Rob used ChatGPT and lied about it. Rob used AI and lied about it. Now that becomes the narrative for his audience. They don't give a shit. They don't care that it's... Now it's turned into, Rob lied about it. He bullied it to say what he wanted, and he uses AI for every one of his arguments. It's a fucking joke. It's as much of a joke as that dude that you just saw. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter that it's not in reality, that it's just bullshit. If we repeat it enough, then it must be true. Aircraft Sparky gifting 10 memberships. Now more people could use the emojis. Thank you, Sparky. Always the best. Thank you, man. I defended when people said Destiny looks shit up in Wikipedia. I was like, so what? Is he right? Using Wikipedia is fine as a starting point. For example, if we were in that same discussion I just had with Andrew there. If he said, no, Republicans didn't control the House and the Senate in 2021, or Democrats didn't control the House and Senate in 2021, and I went to Chat GPT and said, in the 2020 election, how many seats did that in the House did Democrats win and how many seats in the Senate? And I said, well, it says that Democrats won. And he might say, well, I don't know if that's true. Where'd you get that from? And I said, AI. Okay, let's look it up further. Was I a shithead for using that? No. No. If I look it up further and it says, actually, that's incorrect, so be it. It's just childishness. That's all it is. Destiny rage quit like a little bitch. Then he blacklisted me like a bitch. Then he blocked me on X like a bitch. I didn't make fun. I'm one of the only people that he debates. Never said shit about his marriage. Never said shit about his personal life. Didn't say shit about these videos being leaked and talk shit on him with that. I basically, to the detriment of me, on my community said, I don't like Destiny. I think a lot of the shit he's saying about this assassination attempt is disgusting and grotesque. But it's edgy jokes, and he does have a point that people made shitty, edgy jokes when Paul Pelosi got attacked with a hammer. I think the ones Destiny are making are worse, but I understand his point, and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that he doesn't really want assassinations against Trump. None of that matters. He's still a bitch. He still blacklists me, and I've heard, told Pisco that he shouldn't be talking with me and blah, 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 blah. And his audience gave Pisco shit for Pisco being like, I don't think Rob should be blacklisted. Can't have that. So when he's out there saying, we're all these conservatives that want to debate. Dude, you're a coward. You're a bitch. You run from the ones that can actually debate well. And he knows I debate well. He knows it. He said it. That's why he blacklisted me. Because what's he get out of debating me? That some fat guy that does home health care for 70 hours a week and lives paycheck to paycheck could smack his ass around in a debate while I only have 130 people watching? That ain't going to do it for him, brother. So fuck him. That's his take on me. That's what's going on. So I don't give a shit what his audience thinks, that they want to cope with the Rob GPT. I fucking love it. Great. Every time they say it, it's an admission that daddy was a coward and had to rage quit and had to blacklist me and come up with a bullshit excuse. That's all it is. That's all it is. Just like this guy, Andrew Marcato, that's going to go to X all the time and say, Rob had to mute me because he's dog shit at debate and I was crushing him, is just an admission. Just an admission that he got his ass kicked. I did not obfuscate using AI. He asked me where I got stuff. I've explained this situation several times. I'll do it one more time under the assumption, Leutnant, that you're being good faith. What occurred was as followed. I worked 2 weeks, then had a vacation, and then worked another week. Something like 20-something days that I was not going to be in my house. I was supposed to debate Pisco with some other Destiny orbiter whose name I can't remember, was going to moderate. We were going to have this hyper-specific debate about the legal definition of the term insurrection. And I said, my interpretation was we don't have a standard legal definition because we haven't really used it in the courts since the time of the Civil War. It never really comes up. And so there really isn't a standard legal definition. Pisco was going to argue from Bode and Paulson, these two guys that wrote this paper, that they gave a standard legal definition that said the insurrection requires these 4 parts legally. That's what they were going to do. I said, okay, fine, we'll do this debate. He said, here's some of the sources. I told him what my arguments were going to be. Great, we're on it. I even mentioned to him, I said, I think that Bode and Paulson might say state-level insurrections could apply. He said, I'm not so sure about that. Anyways, I did a bunch of shit, including I looked it up on Claude AI. I also looked up a bunch of articles that summarized their points, that were arguing for them or against them. Save screenshots on my phone. That way, when I could get home, I could type in the keywords, bring them up on my computer, and then read the articles entirely. In the course of the debate, Destiny makes an asinine argument. He makes the argument that actually there can't be state insurrections. Now, this seems like a benign semantic argument, But remember, we're having a 5-hour discussion on the semantic argument of the definition of the term insurrection. So when he says an insurrection requires 4 points, and one of them is it has to be federal, I'm like, why does that make sense? Couldn't there be a state level insurrection? And there's a reason for this, because later we're going to supposedly have a conversation about how there is a double standard in how this is being applied. Because I feel, for example, Black Lives Matter attacking a courthouse, burning down a police station, attacking the White House would all meet the definition of insurrection that Destiny and Pisco are putting out there. But because I'm debating Destiny literally the moment I walk in the door, like 2 hours I walk in the door, I didn't have a time to move from my phone to the computer to bring up articles. So when Destiny shockingly to me says, well, it has to be federal, I'm like, why? That doesn't seem to make sense. Why would it have to be federal? And he's like, oh, it's just, and I was like, I thought I read somewhere that Bowden Paulson said, no, you could have state level insurrections. That's the author you're using. He's like, where? I pick up my phone. I scroll through screen caps. Some of them were articles. The AI that I used, I thought was one of the articles. I was like, here's a summary, an article that summarized, and it says there could be state level insurrections. Then Destiny's like, can you send it to me? I send it to him, and there was 2 parts to it. And it was in dark mode, and the rest were in light mode. So I knew what 2 parts were. And when I sent him the second part, I realized it was from AI. Destiny says, this isn't from AI, is it? It wouldn't matter if it was. It's not ChatGPT. And I said, no, I think it's Claude. That's it. So I obfuscated for 45 seconds is the argument. It wasn't intentional. I literally thought it was an article summary. But then when I realized it was AI, I said, oh yeah, it's Claude AI. That's it. Then we went to the source material, and lo and behold, yes, it did say that Bowden Paulson said there could be state-level insurrections. Destiny said, okay, and that was it. That point had nothing to do with the rest of the debate, because Destiny, like a chicken shit coward, backed out after we talked about what he wanted to for nearly 5 hours, and then once we started getting to the point where I wanted to talk about the double standard, he rage quit. That's what happened. Then he needed to save face. So the way he saved face was the next day he came on and said, Rob's blacklisted because 2 hours earlier in the debate, he used AI. That's what happened. Did the AI basically say what I said? Now, it is true. I made one off-color comment where I said, I also think Bowden Paulson said that Article or Section 3 of the 15th should apply. Bowden Paulson don't say that. They say in cliff note or in a footnote that actually they don't think it should apply. But the bulk of what we were talking about was, can there be state insurrections? Destiny said no. I said, I think there can. We went to the source. I was right. There, end of it. And yet, every day I have people saying, well, you bullied it. Well, you used AI for every argument. Well, you concealed the fact that you used AI. It's a fucking joke. It's a joke. It's cope. That's all it is. That's all it is. Yeah, that's fine, Loyton. Now, would it have been better policy for me to say, wait a minute, I'm not sure where this came from. I just did screenshots. Let me look into this. Yeah, that would have been better policy. It would always be the best policy anytime you're using any source would say, here's a source, here's where I got it, here's what it is. But if the two big criticisms seem to be, well, for 45 seconds, I didn't say it was AI. Okay, that's it. Or I bullied AI into getting the answer I wanted. I've explained how that occurred because I misspelled Bowden Paulson. So I re-asked it. Okay. Then it gave me a different answer the second time when I spelled it correctly. And so I asked it one more time. Are you sure? In their specific paper that Pisco's using, did they make the other argument? Yes, they did make the other argument, it said. But I didn't use that part of it. I just said there could be state insurrections. We looked it up. It was right. Who gives a shit? This bully argument's so fucking nonsensical anyways. If I go to AI right now and I say, who won the Super Bowl last year? And it says the Cleveland Browns. And I say, are you sure? I don't think they did. And it says, yes, it was the Browns. And I ask it 100 times, are you sure it wasn't the Chiefs? No, it was the Browns. Are you absolutely sure it wasn't the Chiefs? Nope. And then on the 100th time it says, actually, you're right. It was the Chiefs. Am I an asshole because I bullied AI? Well, as long as the answer is correct, who gives a shit? That's exactly what happened to me to you. He stomped out like a 2-year-old when he was getting frustrated with the debate. That's exactly what happened. And it's the same crowd. It's the same crowd. And why am I bringing it up now? Because when Andrew Marcato, that guy who we just saw, when I'm like, okay, dude, you're a coward. You don't want to debate anymore. What's he end up saying? Okay, Rob GPT. And they think that's some sort of own. It's fucking hilarious to me. It is absolutely hilarious. I'm not going to play catch. I'm not going to play baseball with him anymore because his glove's too good. That's it. That's what happened. All right, I'm out of here. We're going to do... so one thing I'm going to try to do is raid someone on... Cody Folsom, I missed this. Thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. We're not going to worry about raiding anyone today. I do have a little bit of bummer news. I'm not going to dwell on this that much, but it is worth saying because it's going to come up. So I do a little bit of bad news. I have a dog named Annabelle. I'd mentioned before she's having health problems. I don't think she's going to make it another month. She's 14 years old. She's got cancer pretty bad, and she's got big growths, lumps that are growing on her that are inoperable at this point. The vet's advice to her was to make her as comfortable as possible. And unfortunately, the lumps are getting so big that they're starting to break open. Now, we've bandaged them. We've put medication on the lumps. We put a shirt around her, but the writing's on the wall. And I don't think she's going to make it much longer. So it's doubly hard because I really like dogs and I really like Annabelle. She's probably my favorite dog ever. I got her a couple months after I started dating my now wife, Courtney. So Annabelle's been with me and Courtney the entire time. And it's the first time that my 3-year-old, who's going to be turning 4 in January, is going to have to deal with any sort of death. Because we've been very lucky. We haven't had any family members die. So it's going to be a real bummer. It really is. I don't know how many people out there are dog people, but I'm definitely a dog guy. So that is going to be a bummer. So if something would happen and you don't hear me for a day or two or something like that, it might be something like that I'm dealing with. And I don't know how gung-ho I'm going to be to post. Sorry guys, not streaming tonight. My dog passed away. So just throwing that out there. Some point after she passes away, I'll do a show. We'll get some Annabelle pictures and stuff like that up. And, I would bring her up, but sometimes she's uncomfortable. At this point, you need to sit her on like a bed or like a comfy chair, the recliner or something. This computer chair, she would squirm and it wouldn't be great for her. So, I just wanted to let people know that that's what's going on. So, prayers for Annabelle. She's been a great dog. I'm going to do my best to feed her the most garbage, bullshit, expensive food that I can for the next month or so. I really, really want her to make it through Christmas. We always get the dogs a stocking and stuff, so I hope she makes it that long, but it is not looking good. I hear she's wormed her way into our bed tonight. My wife said, she's like, I got the dogs in bed. So she'll be sleeping in bed with me tonight probably, so you got a new pup? Yeah. We have a 4-year-old dog with her, Dorothy, who's a cool dog too. But Annabelle, Dorothy's like energetic and protective and a cuddler. Annabelle's smart. She's like devious. Like she used to do shit. I'll save it. She's a great dog. She really is. But she's like a little person. Like she's smart. Dorothy, I don't mind saying she's kind of dumb, but Annabelle's She's very smart. So, all right, man. I'll be streaming live tomorrow night. We're going to do a call-in show between 7 and 8 p.m. We'll start. So, I might end up on the couch. My wife says, damn you, Annabelle. Hey, man, she's going out like a trooper. I got myself today, I went out and got an Egg McMuffin sandwich and got groceries. And then I was in the kitchen helping put groceries away and came back in and she ate my sandwich. But you can't even be mad. You can't be upset about it. You're like, touche. You know, you probably got a month left to go. You stole the sandwich. My bad. So I wasn't even mad about it. Now she's getting my bed. So I'm trying to keep positive with it. It's car rides and delicious food from here on out for her. So we're going to make the most of it. I'm not going to sit around and boo-hoo. But I will do a show talking about her when the time comes. So. All right, thank you, everyone. Everyone that donated, thanks for indulging me going back on an old debate I did. Remember, I'm going to start doing debate reviews of people that aren't just me. I'm not totally conceited, so I will do reviews of other people. We'll be doing in January sometime a 10,000 sub for YouTube show, so we're going to do something. So I'm always taking ideas for that. And like I said, we're getting the emojis working now for people that are members. If you have emojis that you would like to see, you can put them on my general chat on my Discord. Put them in there, and I'll try to get those uploaded. As always, I'm putting YouTube shorts and just regular form YouTube videos up from my great editor, Black Elk. We're putting those up on YouTube every day, and I try to put those shorts on X, TikTok, and Rumble as well. So you can check those out even when I'm not doing live material. And I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow night. So thank you guys so much. We'll see you all tomorrow, and as always, have a good one.